Stephanie.
Good afternoon. This is the Board of Appeals down in Hempstead, 2 o'clock meeting, December 14th, 2022. Mr. Chairman, do you have any opening remarks?
A couple. For those of you who haven't been here before, I'm going to lay out how we normally proceed. First thing we're going to do is take any requests for adjournments, so that way, if the case is going to be adjourned, everybody will know about it. They won't have to hang out once it gets taken care of. Once we start calling the calendar, we're going to go through in order. The applicant will, and whatever witnesses they have, will come up to the table up here. Everybody that's going to testify gets sworn in. The applicant will then present their case, calling the witnesses that they have. When they are done, if there are any objectors or anybody who's interested in the case that wants to take part, they'll be given an opportunity to ask questions or make their own presentations. Once the cases are done, the hearing will be closed. It gets put on a decision calendar. Most cases will be decided today, although not all of them. If it's not decided today, they'll go onto a reserve calendar or a referral calendar to be decided in the future. We ask that everybody, when you come up, please speak slowly, speak clearly. We are on a live feed on the Town of Hempstead website, and it's also archived. We need you to speak into the microphone so they can hear you. That's another part of it. Also, from time to time, I see we have some people in here that are usually qualified as an expert. If somebody's going to be qualified as an expert in a particular matter, the purpose of that qualification is they've probably testified before us many, many, many times. Qualifying somebody as an expert merely gives them the ability to testify and give us an opinion. We're not obligated to accept the opinion, but we will take it just the same. I think that really covers pretty much everything we're going to do. If you see me from time to time start to smile, you'll understand that today is my last session here. After 17 and a half years, I'm retiring from the board, and this is my last hearing date. So most of the cases will be taken care of today. If not, whatever comes up will be next year, and it'll be under the auspices of the next chairman or chairperson, whoever it may be. Based upon that, Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, I have a case for adjournment. It's case 840-822, Elmont, Pt2 LLC. Special exception to place of public assembly and amusement, variance of off-street parking, proposed event space in the park of the existing shopping center, aka 1763 through 1791 Dutch Broadway.
Is there anybody else here on that matter?
Yes, we're here.
Come up front so we can hear what's going on. There's a request for an adjournment. Name and address for the record.
For the record, Albert D'Agostino, Minerva D'Agostino, PC, 107 South Central Avenue, Valley Spring, 11580 for the applicant.
Okay, Mr. D'Agostino, is this your application for adjournment? All right, just so I can explain. Ladies, what's happening is the applicant is actually asking for an adjournment of the case. We'll give us explanation reasons in a moment. This is the first time this case is actually on the calendar. So we have traditionally, when a case is on the first time and somebody wants an adjournment, we will normally grant an adjournment and come up with a date that works for everybody. So, Mr. D'Agostino, can you tell us what the purpose is?
Yes, well, we're waiting for a report from our traffic and parking expert, and that's in some total that's the review.
And how much time do you think you need?
If you need some time in January, late January, that would work.
Ladies, do you want to speak, or do you have any questions about what's going on? And if you do, you just need your name and address so we can put it on the record. Come up closer. It's okay. Right. For the microphone.
My name is Pat Price. I reside at 1966 Byron Avenue, Elmont 11003.
Okay.
My concerns, I will not address them today since it's being adjourned.
Right.
So I'll try to be here for the adjournment.
Okay. What's going to happen? Be aware that if you can't be here or anybody can't be here for the date when this is actually set, you can send a letter, you can do an email, you can do a fax. All of that will become part of the record for the future. It becomes part of the decision process. So if you can make it, you do have the ability to do that.
My next question, my letter should be addressed here.
Here. Yes, if you have any questions, you can ask Mr. Owens over here, and he'll give you the address to send it to or the email address where you can
Most
send it.
certainly I will send a letter.
Okay.
I'm not able to come.
All right, Patrick, anything else?
No,
Okay. Patrick, are we okay in January or in February?
February 1st.
Okay, let's-
9:30.
All right. Can we do a 9:30? Is that okay for everybody? February 1, 9:30 a.m.
It's not fine with me, but I've sent my letter.
Okay, very good.
Definitely.
Right, it's always a Wednesday, so it's a Wednesday morning, February 1, 9:30 a.m.
but this is not the ready venue to basically ask for clarification and to express concerns about the type of business
That is what will happen when you do the hearing. Today is just an adjournment. So when we do the hearing on February 1, that's when you can express your opinion as to what, on the application itself.
So that's February 1st.
February 1, 9:30 a.m. And there won't be any other notices or mailings going out, so if you know anybody else who's interested, please let them know that that's the date line.
You can also do your letter by way of an internet submission if you wish.
So you can send an email.
Yes, work, but I guess I have to make it by appointment to the 7th.
Okay, very
Thank
good. All right, February 1, 9:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any other requests for adjournment.
Are there any other requests for adjournment? If not, let's go on.
First, we have 830-822 East Meadow, Twin Oaks FM Holdings, LLC. Variances, subdivision of lot front width from on street line, front setback line, construct dwelling, garage, lot B, demolish existing dwelling known as 2780 Woods Avenue. Also, we have 839-22 East Meadow, Twin Oaks FM Holdings, LLC. Variances, subdivision of lots front width from and on street line, front setback line, construct dwelling with garage, lot A. Also known as the south side of Woods Avenue, 187.3 west of Belmore Road. You swear or affirm to tell me the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
State your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members, Christian Brown, Laughlin Stern, 1122 Franklin Avenue, Garden City, for the applicant.
Good afternoon, Byron Nelson, 220 Pettit Avenue, Belmore, New York, 171.
All right, what do we do for you?
Good afternoon, we are here on a subdivision case seeking variances for this property, 2780 Woods Avenue, East Meadow. This is in the Residence A district. Although if you look at the radius map, just note for the record that the Residence B line actually comes through, sort of bisects, touches both parcels. So it's basically right on the border of Residence A and Residence B, but the majority of the lots are in Residence A, so the building department is treating under the Residence A standards, which are not radically different from the Residence B standards, but the street frontage requirement, which is what's at issue here, goes from 55 feet in Residence B to 60 feet in Residence A. The street frontage variance is the only variance we're seeking here. The proposal is to subdivide an existing 15,520 square foot lot into two new building lots for the construction of two new single-family homes. We'll be demolishing the existing 1,200 square foot sort of cottage that now sits on the property and replacing it with two new single-family homes. Lot A would be 7,843 square feet, and Lot B would be 7,675 square feet, so well in excess of the 6,000 square foot minimum required in both B and A zones, and in keeping with the character of the area, which Mr. Nelson, of course, will detail on the radius map. But if you look at the map, you'll see that the lots just to the west, for example, on the same side of the street, are slightly larger. The lot to the east is a bit smaller. It's basically a 60 by 100 lot. And across the street, there are a number of 50-foot frontage lots directly across Woods Avenue, all within the 200 feet depicted on the radius map. Again, Mr. Nelson will detail those for you. So we believe you will, I hope you will agree that the configuration that we're proposing with two zoning compliant homes fits within the character, and the only variance needed is for the 52 feet of frontage that each lot would have, which is, of course, deficient, where we here need 60 feet of frontage. I've already noted that the Residence A requirements do apply here, but it is right on the border of the Residence B, where we'd be at 55-foot frontage standard, so it's a little bit greater departure from the standard than would be normally the case, because as you know, the great majority of the town's residential zoning is in the B district, but nonetheless, given the fact that the lots are otherwise substantially oversized and do fit within the general character of the neighborhood, and because the homes themselves will also be zoning compliant, a diminution or a deviation, I should say, from the street frontage variance is of a minor character and really doesn't affect the nature and the character of the neighborhood in any way. Plus, there are other 50-foot frontages slightly smaller than what we propose here, just adjacent to the subject property. Before I turn it over to Mr. Nelson,
Where is it?
right across Woods Avenue on the corner of Belmore Road.
Yeah, they front of that.
Correct.
Really? Oh, I see. There's 350s in there.
Correct.
So we just want to do it once.
I know it's a little hard to see on the map.
No, we got it covered.
The Arthur J. Levine Memorial Magnifying Glass.
Exactly. Sherlock.
And I just did want to touch on one final point before I turn it over to Mr. Nelson, because I'm sure you're aware of this, and we would never try to withhold evidence from it. But there was a prior denial on this property back in 1990, May of 1990, case 449 of that year. However, there are some substantial differences between this application and that application. The main one being that in that application, the idea was to preserve the existing cottage, I'll call it, or a small house, and so it was maintain and construct. And as Mr. Nelson will detail for you, the lot configuration was therefore quite a bit different. I believe one of the lots had a 40 or so foot street frontage.
Correct.
Mr. Nelson, name and address?
Yes, it's on the record.
Okay, and you're, since we list him, we qualified you as an expert on real estate and real estate valuation. Have there been any changes in your credentials?
No, sir.
All right, so we're going to continue your qualification as an expert. You're free to testify. And was the prior application one where they used to gerrymander the lines to give you frontage on one?
No, sir. That would be the ones just to the east of subject property. This one was, in fact, I worked on that with an attorney, Bruce Kennedy. I don't know if you remember him.
Amityville.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And the Massapequa. And that maintained the existing house, complying side yards, requiring a front yard setback to maintain the nonconformity of the existing house. And the new colonial was proposed on a 49.5-foot frontage. Lot area compliant, as in today's application, but it's a significant difference where we maintain the smaller house around 55 foot wide. The new house was proposed for 49.5 feet. In today's application, it's equal frontage. It'll remove the nonconformity of the existing house, which has a 6.6 foot front yard setback to Woods Avenue, and each will be 52.3 feet in width. The configuration of the entire parcel is the same as it was back in 1990. We just have two equal frontages now.
And I just did want to add also for the record that there is no privity between the applicant today and the applicant then. That applicant, and this is reflected in the chain of title, so it's in your file, that applicant sold the house, or may have even lost the house in taxes a few years after the denial of the subdivision. That was back in 1993. Actually, Mr. Hodges is in the record as executing the deed that transferred it out of that applicant's name, and the present owner has no relation to that prior owner. The present owner has owned the property for quite a number of years now. There are two elderly people living in this cottage. They're looking to sell and be able to move on to a better, more living situation that's more conducive to their needs as elderly people. And the family is here today. And I would just finally close by pointing to this house. This house, as Mr. Nelson notes, is non-conforming. It's out of sync with the front yard setback. It's basically an obsolete structure. It would be very difficult to sell this house. The house itself is worth, very little, which Mr. Nelson will touch on. The value here is in the land. So we believe two new houses on lots like we are proposing here actually bring the neighborhood into greater conformity. It'll match the area character and no detrimental result. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
I thought he was finished.
Me too.
Me too.
I have some exhibits I'd like to get in. I got a packet of photographs, 2 originals. There's 18 pictures of the subject property and surrounding uses. I have some location maps and comparable sales. And the last exhibit would be a subdivision that was approved in the subject block just outside the radius.
Accept those in evidence.
This is the northeast corner, generally, or southeast corner of East Meadow, just for a little further south, would be Belmore. The application, as council mentioned, is to provide a significant parcel, 15,520 square foot parcel, into 2 conforming lot areas, as far as one parcel 7,800 plus square feet, the other parcel 7,600 square feet, which those parcels are in keeping with the size of the majority of the parcels in the area. There are no other parcels in this area that lend itself to a subdivision as far as lot area, so there's a significant benefit to the applicant under this application. As council mentioned, there are 3 50-foot frontages on the west side of Belmore Road, north of Woods Avenue. The rest of the parcels are conforming. The subdivision that I supplied would be in the subject block, but it's just outside the radius, and that would be the northeast corner of Cypress Avenue, which is a block to the south, and Hilda Street, which would be a block to the west. And those 2 houses are known as 467 and 477 Hilda Street. And those parcels came before the board. I provided a copy of the case numbers as far as the dates. I provided, since it's outside the radius, I provided a Nassau County Department of Assessment tax map illustrating the parcels, and each one of those required lot area less than 6,000 square feet and rear yard setback, and that was a corner parcel that was divided into 180 by 76 and another 70 by 76, each under 6,000 square feet. The parcel to the east of the subject property was a subdivision that basically, back before they changed the code, where it was 40 at the street, 55 at the building line, from now to 55 at the street to 55 at the building line. Even then, this is a 60-foot frontage, similar application, or similar amendment to code, 60 at the street, 60 at the front building line. But if you look at the rest of that parcel, it's 55 feet from the front building line going south. Nevertheless, it's my opinion that the creation of a second lot, 2 new homes at this area location in East Meadow is not going to alter or change the central character of the neighborhood, and is in keeping with the consistency of lot sizes in the area. You do have the town Hempstead Department of Water just to the southwest of subject property on 3 tax lots. That doesn't lend itself to a subdivision. The values in the area generally start around 450 to $1.2 million, $1.3 million on the newer colonials. The house itself right now is an old bungalow. It's non-conforming, maintains a 6.6-foot front yard setback off of Woods Avenue. It's located all the way to the east. It's a house approximately 1,200 square feet without a character for the area. So values, as I mentioned, 450 to $1.2 million plus in the area. The parcel itself, as improved, it would be worth approximately $475,000 to $490,000. One building lot, approximately $375,000 to $400,000. So it's beneficial to maintain the house as is. The applicant is in contract to sell to the developer for $600,000. So there's a benefit to the applicant, and a benefit to the seller in this application, as well as the applicant who is a developer. He will put up 2 houses, colonial in nature, with garages and driveways. Each would sell for approximately $1,050,000. So what we have going forward is 1 house that would be worth approximately $490,000, or 2 colonials that would have an aggregate value of $2.1 million. So there's a significant benefit to the applicant, the seller, as well as the county. They'll pay their fair share of real estate taxes, which would be in excess of $25,000 to $30,000 on each house, versus what's currently now approximately $10,000 in real estate taxes. That said, my opinion is a reasonable request coming before the board, and it's not going to be detrimental to the surrounding community. All municipal services are available, including access to emergency vehicles, fire hydrants, which are on subject streets, concrete sidewalks, and curbs. Thank you.
Unless you have anything further?
Okay, usually client consent to owner occupied.
Yes, we would agree to the usual conditions.
No basement entrances.
Correct.
Now, what about moving the house? I see you have the larger side yard on the outside. Would it be possible to move them closer so it's 5 foot facing each other and 10 foot on the outside?
I think that was the applicant's here. And the grades are
Yeah, we should be able to put the greater side yard on the outside of the zone.
Maintaining the same side yards, but
Yes, we would consent to that.
no basement entrance.
No basement entrance, the usual owner occupied, not sale condition.
All right. Do I have any other questions from the board?
Wait, just before you close, I just want to wish you the best, Chairman. And thank you for, you were a great help to me way back when, and I want to thank you for your years of service here. It's been a pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, on that note, I would like to hear any close amendment based on the decision by Mr. Brown, Mr. Nelson. Anyone else to sign in on the case? The decision about the board's decision, I know.
Second. Favor?
Have a nice day.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Next, we have case 840-22 near Westbury, Abdul Qadir Iqbal. Variances, front yard, average setback, side yards, aggregate construct portico, 2-story addition, and second-story addition, all attached as well, known as 594 Kathleen Place. This is
Chris Gray, architect, 2401 Capri Place, North Belmont, New York, representing Abdul Iqbal, located at 594 Kathleen Place, Westbury, New York. Good afternoon again, board and Mr. Chairman. My client wishes to put a 2-story addition in the rear of his home and a second floor over a 1-story section, basically squaring off the rear of the house. Also, we'd like to extend the front with a 1-story addition. That addition would be underneath the cantilever. It's 2 foot 3 inches forward of the lower face of the house, even with the cantilever. And in front of that, we would like to put a modest 2-story portico, which does not qualify for a permitted encroachment. That proposed vestibule would be 3 feet 5 inches from the face of the addition and cantilever. In doing so, in respect to the rear portion of the house, there's insufficient aggregate side yards. The proposed aggregate is 14.3 feet, where 15 feet is required. And with the front addition, the average front yard setback is 28.1 feet, and the distance to the portico, the two-story portico, is 22.4 feet. So fairly, the front addition is fairly modest to try to help a little space in the front door, and they give a little bit of appearance with the portico.
So other than that small area in the rear?
Yes.
And this small portico that protrudes slightly into the front yard setback?
Yes.
Rear average setback. The rest of the proposal would basically go with the footprint of the house.
That's correct. That's it.
Mr. Gray, I'm just looking at the plans that you submitted, and it's just catching my eye. The downstairs, everything is sort of proportioned. The upstairs, I see a master bedroom, sort of a master bedroom suite, 3 other bedrooms, the largest one being 201 square feet, and then a rec room that's 719 square feet in the back.
I find it very strange myself.
They play football up there?
I don't know. I think the owner has a large family. I have no idea.
Don't you watch DIY? Everyone wants open floor plan.
I think it's a little strange myself. But to his defense, it's not conducive. Excuse me?
You don't have to defend it.
No, I find it strange myself. I
just look at it that if my kids had that much room, they'd be ramming into walls and going through them because they built up enough speed. So, in any event, it's their choice what they want to do, as long as they're not turning it into another apartment.
That's correct.
They can do what they want with it, basically.
That is
All right,
correct.
that's your case?
That is my case.
All right, do you have any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the hearing be closed and now be placed on the decision calendar. Mr. Gray, you receive a copy of the board's decision by mail once it's ready.
Thank you very much.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Lastly, I'd like to congratulate you on your retirement.
Only from here, not from here.
No, from here, that's fine. And I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you all these years, and so is this board is a pleasure as well. Of all the places that I go, this happens to be my favorite place to be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
And
very much.
exactly, we shouldn't be calling it retirement, because it's sort of a reallocation effort.
I'm just retiring from the board.
That is fine. Thank you very much.
Thanks. You too.
Next, we have case 84122, Roosevelt, Rodney Powell. Variances subdivision of lot, front width from lawns and on-street line to front yard, front setback line, maintains dwelling and detached garage on lesser lot, also known as 119 East Fulton Avenue, as well as 84222 Roosevelt, Birdland Homes Incorporated. Variances subdivision of lot area, front width from and on street line, front setback line, side yard to aggregate, construct dwelling with garage. North side is in Fulton Avenue, 372 east of Babylon Turnpike. You swear or tell the truth, both of them, on the back?
Yes.
Yes.
For the applicant, Robert W. O'Brien, 877 North Carolina Avenue, North Carolina Street, New York.
It's Larry Nelson, 220 Bennett Avenue, Belmont, New York, 11719.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. If I may just digress for a second, it was a pleasure to have been here on your first stage here. It's an honor to be here for your last.
That's right. You're one of the few that actually has done both. I appreciate that, Mr. O'Brien.
I'll say a little more at the end, but good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. I represent the applicants, Rodney Powell and Birdland Homes Inc., with respect to the instant application, the two-lot subdivision in the hand of the Roosevelt. The applicant will move to have the two cases consolidated here as one. And as the usually for his appearance on the record, between the right of Hempstead and Harry Nelson, he's prepared to testify regarding the nature and character of the area and the benefits of the application. The applicants outweigh any detriment to the surrounding community. Also present, I just want to point out, we don't have enough seating in the new quarters over here. We have Steve Brady, Principal of Brady Land. We have Mr. Powell, Rodney Powell, here to
the record, Mr. Liberty did not sign it.
He was probably late, but I'd be happy to do so.
Mr. O'Brien, I know Mr. Liberty, he's a builder, he's probably the principal of this. The other gentleman?
Mr. Powell is the owner of the property, Bertie Little Homes, and it is the contract vendee for one of the subdivided parts. Mr. Powell owns the existing dwelling, or he owns the whole property,
right,
but it is part of the subdivision, and you'll hear more about it. His intention is to renovate the property and actually move in and live in it. It was damaged to the house by a fire.
I see. Thank you.
The property, as noted as subject to the application, is on the south side of East Fulton Avenue in the Hamlet of Roseville. North side, I apologize. This is Mr. Nelson corrected me, and I got my direction. It's approximately 332 feet east of Babylon Turnpike, and it does have the street address of 119 East Fulton Avenue, and just for the record, on the tax map of Nassau County, it's known as Section 55, Rockdale, and Lot 750. Parcel as it currently exists is a regular 85.27 feet of frontage on East Fulton. On the west side, it's depth of almost 150 feet, a little less than 147 on the other side, and a rear property line of just under 99 feet. Total lot area is just over 13,345 square feet. As I noted, there's currently a one-family dwelling with a detached garage on the westerly portion of the property that Mr. Powell is seeking to maintain, and let me add the words, and rehab on the case number 84122, 841 of 2022. The applicant, Bertie Homes, proposes constructing a new one-family dwelling with attached garage on the easterly portion of the premises on the case 842 of 22. In the application for Mr. Bertie, the proposed parcel for the new one-family dwelling with attached garage and east side totals, the parcel totals just under 5,900 square feet, 5877.32. Has a 45.27 feet of frontage on East Fulton, depth on one side of just over 143 feet, just under 147 feet on the east side, and a rear property line of 36.97 feet. The only variance is needed here for subdivision of the lot area for the code requires 6,000 square feet, and the proposed lot has just over 5,877 square feet, a difference of only 2.1%. Front width from the street line to the front setback line, as I noted, 44.7 feet when the code requires 55, and side yard aggregate with the code requiring 16.0 feet, and the proposed residence having 14.6 feet, a difference of less than 17 inches. As I noted on the case 841 of 22, Mr. Powell is requesting permission to maintain the existing one-family dwelling and attached garage on the west side. That parcel has just under 7,500 square feet of area, 40 feet frontage on East Fulton, just under 150 feet of depth on one side, over 143 feet of depth on the other side, and a rear property line of 61.68 feet. The variance needed, therefore, for subdivision of lot and front width from the street line to front setback line. Again, with the code requiring 55 feet, and the applicant only got 40 feet. 40 feet on the main pavement. If the board is inclined to grant the application, the applicant is amenable to all reasonable and customary conditions that the board has been known to impose to ensure that both new families are utilized as one family and not multiple occupancy ones, which is completely owner-occupied. And if I may, Mr. Bertie has no problem that I spoke with Mr. Powell. His intention is to renovate the house and to move into it. His personal residence, the house was fire damaged, and he needs the money from the sale of the adjacent parcel to Mr. Bertie to renovate the house and be able to move in and use it as his principal residence. As is my practice, I made a physical inspection of the area, found there to be a fair mixture of older and newer homes in the area. The existing dwelling is in a state of disrepair. If you drive by it, you'll see some boarded up, you'll see some vehicles, you'll see, I think there's some concern about the garage there. The garage needs to be renovated, and Mr. Powell has assured us that is his intention with the proceeds from the sale. Unless the board has any questions for me at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson, your name and address is on the record?
Yes, sir.
All right, since the last time we qualified you as an expert on real estate and real estate valuation, have there been any changes in your credentials?
No, sir.
All right, we're going to continue your qualifications as an expert, and you are free to testify.
Thank you. I have several exhibits I'd like to hand in. Photographs to original set of 19 photographs, location map, comparable sales, and some recent grants by the board for subdivisions in the vicinity of the subject property.
We'll accept all that in evidence. And Mr. Nelson, let me just ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Just going back historically on this parcel, was this originally part of the previous subdivision?
From the configuration, I don't have a title, from the configuration of the lot, I believe it would possibly come from, or the lot just to the west.
I'm looking at your search reports, and it shows a 1974 open permit to maintain a one-family dwelling and two-car garage on a lesser lot. So there had to be something. Do you have any records on the previous subdivision from 74?
I don't. But I would assume that to be, since you have the tax lot numbers of 749 to the west, and the subject property is 750 to the east.
Oh, I assume finishing off case 841 would replace or supplement or supplant that open permit. So I'm just calling it to your attention and make sure that that gets cleared off the record once this is done.
The logic seems to be there, so I would think to agree.
Logic doesn't always come to the table, you know that.
And the town fence.
Okay.
So, that was going to be part of my testimony. It appears, but the subject property now maintains in excess of 13,345 square feet with the existing dwelling, detached garage, and the vacant portion to the east. To the west, again, right around that time frame in the 1970s, a high ranch was constructed immediately to the west of the subject property. Uses of pattern of development, the property is just east of Babylon Turnpike. For generally about the first 100 feet, you have business, commercial that faces Babylon Turnpike, but it does go beyond the 100-foot depth and into the residential district with parking and building and non-conforming uses on the subject street as on East Centennial and along Babylon Turnpike on the east side because of the configuration, how Babylon Turnpike runs north and south, and it's not parallel to the streets to the east. Nevertheless, you'll see numerous parcels with frontages that are less than the 55-foot requirement. They break down within a 100-foot radius, 10 out of 16, 62.5%, and 22 out of 34, 64.7%. One of the variances that I submitted with a subdivision would be to the northeast of the subject property on the south side of East Centennial Avenue. And that would be what is identified as the Yvette Ortree property. And that was cases 109 and 110, January 26, 2022. And they required lot area, front width on each. 2 colonials were recently constructed. The photographs that I've submitted, along with the Board of Appeals cards, Photographs would be on page 16 and 17. They are now on the market for in excess of $650,000, closer to $700,000 for sale. The second subdivision is just outside the 200-foot radius, would be within a 300-foot radius, but that would be on the south side of East Fulton Avenue, just east of Shearer Place. And that was under cases 619 and 618, July 10th, 2019. That was to maintain an existing dwelling and construct a new colonial, similar to what's being proposed in today's application for design and style of the new colonial. Those pictures would be found on pages 18 and 19 of my exhibit submitted to the board. The area character is well established. The subject property is the largest property in the area, one of the last few, if any, that lends itself to a subdivision. It is an oversized parcel area. It does have the legitimate 6,000 square feet each, while the maintained would be on the larger lot. New colonial would be on a slightly smaller, unsized lot, nevertheless, it's 13,000 square feet, excess of 2,000 square feet. The benefit to the applicant is monetary. The benefit to the seller of the parcel itself is substantial. The current house is in disrepair. It does need work, it does need cleanup, and by selling the lot, and the value of the lot, I believe, is approximately $110,000 to $120,000 with the permit as proposed, is beneficial to the seller. New colonials in the area sell anywhere from $550,000 upward to actually $700,000. Considering the location, there is commercial just to the west of the subject property, both on the north and south side of East Fulton Avenue. In my opinion, a new colonial would sell for around $575,000 at this location. The maintained, it is in disrepair, it needs work. It would be worth approximately $225,000 to $250,000. There is not much more significant value to the excess land over the 7,000 square feet, so maybe there's another $10,000 added in. The existing house needs in excess of $125,000 in repairs. The new home would sell for approximately $575,000. That said, in my opinion, that the request of the area variances is in keeping with houses for town development on East Fulton Avenue, on Shearer Avenue, and East Centennial Avenue, and all municipal services are available. Paved highway, paved roadway, fire hydrants. In fact, there's a fire hydrant just to the northeast or southeast of the corner of the subject property on East Fulton Avenue. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson? Okay, Mr. O'Brien? I don't know if there's anybody else who wants to be heard.
I know there's one person in the audience who signed in. I think it was Ms. Rain, was it? Beulah Rain?
Well, I'm happy to wait until everybody speaks.
Do you want to speak? You have questions? Yes or no? You don't have to, but you did sign in on the sheet. All right. Apparently no. So, board.
If I Mr. O'Brien, if I just may just I'm sorry, you have questions before. I was just going to get, throughout the town, usually 6,000 square feet for one house, 12,000 square feet for two family. We have 13,335 square feet. That's 11% excess. So I would certainly make the argument that two one-family homes and a two-family home that you run the risk of non-owner occupancy and maintenance problems, whatever. I believe that the idea of having a new home and a rehabilitated home will be a plus not only for my clients, but it'll be a plus for the people who need a clean up and eyesore at the same time.
Mr. O'Brien, I just have a quick question. As it relates to the maintained house,
Yes.
you may have answered this already, I may have missed it. There are some dotted lines in the outline of the structure. Is that, I'm not clear on what that is. Is that some change that's proposed to that structure? It's like the structure and then,
I believe that's the one-story and the two-story, Mr. Kamada. Part of the dwelling.
so it's existing, it's just denoting what's one story and what's two.
Exactly. The second story being smaller of an area than the first. In the middle of, yes, thank you. And as I said, you go by there, you see it boarded up. It's really, part of my job is to sell my case, but it isn't. If you wanted to pick out the worst house in the block, this is it. It'll be the best house, or the best house in the block.
Anything else? That is the most important. Are there any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the hearing be closed and now placed on the decision counter, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Nelson, and anyone else who signed in on the case will receive a copy of the board's decision by now once it's ready. Thank you all for coming in and participating.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
And before we leave, it's going to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. Happy, if I say it right, Mr. White, Hanukkah. Close enough for the Irish side? I'd like to see how Stephanie hits that down.
Airbrush that, Stephanie, airbrush that.
And Mr. Weiss, again, have a wonderful retirement from the board, and I know we'll see each other around. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Next we have case 842, near Garden City, the retail property trust. Special exception for proposed detached hotel, special exception to exceed floor area ratio in square footage, variance in off-street parking, special exception to exceed floor area ratio in square footage, proposed detached retail store, variance in off-street parking, aka swear affirm the proposed
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. William Vanesso for Cello D. Tirana, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York, here on behalf of the applicant, the Retail Property Trust. The Retail Property Trust is the entity that owns the land that the Simon Roosevelt Field Mall is situated upon. With me this afternoon are representatives from BHP Engineering, the site engineering firm for the mall. One of the people from BHP is Mr. Patrick Monahan. He is a transportation engineer who has appeared before this board on multiple occasions and been granted the status of farming expert. He will be testifying today in connection with this application. Additionally, we have Mr. Barry Nelson, our real estate expert, also qualified hundreds of times by this board, if not more, as a real estate expert. He will be testifying as well. We also have representatives from the principals, the Vice President of Mall Development, Mr. Steve Shea is here, Mr. Todd Turner, and Chief Executive Officer of OTO Development, the hotel company that is joint venturing with Simon for this part of this project is here. And as you can see, these are pretty senior gentlemen with their respective firms, but that's because this is the Roosevelt Field Mall. It is the preeminent shopping mall on Long Island. It is the largest shopping mall on Long Island. It is a jewel in the Simon crown, and it is certainly a major and important and vital economic engine for the Long Island, including being the greatest single generator of sales tax for the county of Nassau. The property is situated within the industrial zoning district, and for many, many years, the mall was obligated to comply with those standards. In the late 2010s, the mall proposed the introduction of Neiman Marcus to Roosevelt Field, and in light of the relief that was going to be needed, and also in light of some concerns that were being expressed by the neighboring village of Garden City at that time, the town board, in their wisdom, created a new chapter for the building zone ordinance known as the regional shopping mall chapter, which is an overlay applicable to any malls having more than 1 million square feet of gross leasable area, and that basically covered 2 malls, the Green Acres Mall and Roosevelt Field Mall. And it applied new standards in terms of bulk and setbacks and parking and the like to address and accommodate both the needs of the mall, which was, if the mall it's kind of like a shark. If it's not growing and changing, it dies. So it has to adapt to the times, whenever that may be. And at that time, it needed to add Neiman Marcus. At that time, there were also concerns expressed by the neighboring village. So the legislation was put into play and it came into effect in 2013, and it permitted the introduction of the Neiman Marcus as well as some additional mall space associated therewith. Since that time, we've had major changes in the industry. Retail has changed dramatically. Then we've had the pandemic, and as a result, the mall finds need to diversify to some extent, add some things that in the past were not contemplated by these typical or the prototypical mall. And that is what brings the mall here today. It's the first time that they're proposing a major addition to the mall since the Neiman Marcus application. And that proposal is to add 2 pad sites. One is a hotel, 4-story hotel. It's going to be it's filed as 106,240 square feet of gross floor area. It will be a Marriott brand, the AC brand. I'm going to hand in some materials in just a moment, but I first want to just give an overview of the application. The second request is for a proposed retail site in the southeast corner of the mall. That was filed when the applicant had a letter of intent with a major national supermarket chain. I will tell you that letter of intent is no longer in place. So as much as it was proposed to be a supermarket, we are now calling it a proposed retail site. However, as you hear in detail from a traffic expert, they looked at it from both retail and supermarket retail standards in terms of the parking and traffic. So in order to implement these 2 pad sites, we need relief from the regional shopping mall requirements. First of all, we need a parking variance to add both structures. Based upon the additional space and the spaces being lost as a result of building the hotel and the retail site, the site is required to have 10,775 parking spaces. It is proposed to have 10,218 parking spaces.
Can you say those numbers again?
Yes, the parking requirement for maintaining what they have and adding the hotel and the 90,000 square foot retail building will be 10,775 square spaces, and the mall is proposing to have 10,218 parking spaces. So it works out to be a 5% shortfall.
But Mr. Vanessa, last time we did the hotel, the mall, there was a similar parking analysis, but as you drive around there, a big percentage of parking, they allocated for like used cars or new cars. Did you see that? Like where over that area they took up, I don't know how many, but they had several hundred spots used cars that are actually sticking into the ring road too when they back into these spots.
You mean cars that are being stored, new cars or
Yeah.
that are being
That
stored?
were taken
Yeah.
out of the spots that we presume
Yeah.
are available to the shoppers.
The fact of the matter is, you don't design the mall based upon Black Friday, but the parking requirements that apply to the mall are very high, and as a result, there's a significant surplus of parking spaces, as you'll hear from Mr. Lennon. And Simon, being what they are, a very good business company, they look to maximize their land as much as possible, so they would permit the storage of vehicles temporarily on the premises for the needs of new car sales.
I'm not even sure that's allowable. If you don't have storage approval, parking spots are not storage spots. Or it's the start of the analysis and it goes from there.
I understand, and I understand that has occurred in the past, and it is something that I will certainly make Simon aware of, and
Well, is it in
what I can tell you that one of the benefits of this application is a significant modification to the ring road, whereas presently you have these kind of islands that are in between the one-way traffic and the other-way traffic, whether it be east or south or west, or north rather. Those islands are going away on the south side of the mall now, based upon the new development that is taking place. They're going to unify the ring road to make both directions occurring in one path, if you will, next to each other, as opposed to separating, closing in, separating, closing in. Those circles that people terminally get caught up in are going away again on the south and southwesterly side of the ring road. So those areas where that kind of parking has taken place in the past are basically going away. So I think one benefit, certainly from your perspective, will occur as a result of this new development, and that'll be the removal of those islands of parking that shoppers never used but were always available to store vehicles in.
So your presentation takes into account whatever the parking equation is without those in your proposal?
Correct.
And there's no, even if it's not the same ones, there's no, when you give us your presentation as to the available parking, in that is the assumption, I take it, that they're not going to lease for storage the parking spots that you say are available for them.
No, that is an assumption of the application, correct.
Mr. Vanessa, I just have one question. We're sort of confused here. I'm looking at a sheet from DHB that's labeled CP3A. I'm looking at the area maps, I guess the radius map, which is, I guess, the layout as it is today. Where on this radius map, where on this parcel is this hotel being proposed?
Let me use up an aerial photograph that we prepared, and you'll see it very clearly.
Okay, see something that's proposed hotel?
Yeah, what you have is a overall site plan and then a concentrated site plan, if you will. Page CP3A is a conceptual site plan that blows up the southern portion of the mall, and you can see it a little bit better. May I approach?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, we need to see it on the site plan, obviously, because that's where the decision is based.
That's the area.
I think it's here. Yes, it's there.
See, these are
I know it's massive.
Where's the site?
This is it.
No, that's the area.
This is what we have. This is what we have. That's what it is. This is what we have for the site. It says this is the site. This is what we all got for the site. We don't have it. That's what this is here. This is the site. What is this?
That's an area.
This is the site.
Well, it's an area.
Is that you, Mr. Nelson?
This
Is it your phone?
should I leave? Get out.
Only at your own peril can you leave.
I got a couple more cases I can.
Finish?
I'm closing the app.
You're not testifying today on this?
3 more. I promise I won't be
Yeah,
back.
then you can leave.
I promise I won't be back in 2 more weeks.
This is the southern part of the
Mr. Vanessa, just maybe make a record about what we just discussed.
Sorry?
You want to just say for the record what we just discussed?
Excuse me. Apparently, the board members do not have large copies of the site plan in their packages, so I just provided the board with sheet CP3A, the conceptual plan for the southern portion of the mall where both the hotel and the proposed retail site will be situated. And as I noted when we were discussing, with the electronic filings now, we don't submit the large documents that we used to submit. So, and I understand you were printed out small 11.5 and 8.5 by 11 copies of the site plan, the conceptual site plan, and that's not very helpful. So what you have now before you is the conceptual site plan showing the southern portion of the mall. And as I was saying before, the relief we need is both parking variance to introduce both sites. In addition to that, the regional shopping mall requirements impose a maximum floor area ratio of 0.7, and we are proposing 0.72, so it's a 2.3% overage. And then there was a number imposed on maximum gross floor area by the code, which was for 3,550,000 square feet, and with these additions, we will be at 3,717,038 square feet, which is an overage of 4.7%. Now, I can tell you, because I was intimately involved in the negotiations with Garden City at that time, that at that time the village was very concerned about the growth of the mall and wanted to limit that growth. And also happy to tell you that this time around, some 8 years later, I had conversations with Mr. Gary Fishberg, the attorney for the village, to explain to him what the mall was proposing, explain to him the relief that we were seeking. He went to his board of trustees, advised them. He got back to me and said, my board of trustees has no objections to the relief being sought by the applicants in order to put forth the new additions to the mall. So it seems that the feelings that were prevalent in 2012, 2011 have since waned, obviously to our benefit, and I think to the benefit of Garden City. I think Garden City also knows that because, or also is of that position because the other relief we need pertains to the hotel. The hotel, because it's a hotel, and in any district in this, we need a special exception to introduce a hotel at this location. In the village of Garden City, the same company that is joint venturing with Simon for this project, OTO Development, did the Marriott Residence Inn Hotel, which is just outside of the mall property on the other side of the ring road in the tree line development, if you will, over by Maggiano's, the Italian restaurant. That is a Hempstead estate hotel that was built several years ago. I handled that application to the village of Garden City, and it was fully approved and has since been constructed and is a very popular hotel in that area for extended stay residents. It too is a Marriott product. OTO is really a top of the line company that has access to Marriott and other top tier hotel products, and they are doing the public here. And submit to you package of materials which will give you an idea not only of OGO is, but the AC, the Marriott AC brand that is being proposed for this site. The hotel is basically a business-style hotel. It is not an extended stay hotel. The rooms do not have kitchenettes or anything like that. Nor is it a hotel that accommodates large meetings or banquets or affairs. There is a restaurant space. It provides for a breakfast, a brunch that is open to the public, but it's typically the vast majority of the people who use it are guests of the hotel. There's meeting space, but not a great deal. I have a sample floor plan, not the same floor plan that is applicable to this site, because that one is not completed yet, but these are sample floor plans for a similar style AC hotel, Marriott AC hotel, and you'll see in looking at it that there's a lobby area, large lobby area, there's a bar, there are small meeting rooms, there's a small restaurant component, but this is in no way a competitor for Garden City Hotel. This is not going to have large banquet or catered affairs. This is strictly, these are accommodations for the guests. It's as filed, it's proposed to be a 170-room hotel, and it's to be 4 stories. That information that's provided will give you a good overview of the brand. And again, the special permit we need for the hotel is applicable not only to the regional shopping mall chapter, but really any commercial district in the town of Hempstead. So that is what's being presented. Those are the things that are being requested. And unless the board has any questions in terms of the overview of the relief and the application, I'll start calling up the experts to address what we're asking.
You have a traffic person.
We do.
Before you do that, over the stuff that you just said,
Thank you. Oh, and there's one other thing, and the traffic expert will speak to this. As indicated, there was originally a letter of intent for a supermarket, a national supermarket chain, to go into the proposed retail pad site, 90,000 square feet. That letter of intent is no longer in existence, so it may still be a grocery store, it may be a retail center. But because the process in doing this for the mall takes so long, this application was started a full year ago to get us to this day. They have looked at other potential uses for that site, including medical office. So what we have done is prepare a traffic study that addresses the hotel and a retail use. And then we've also prepared a supplemental report that would address, in the event that the application were to change to a medical office use, it analyzes the parking and traffic demand for that use. And we're going to submit that to the board as well. And the reason being is that the parking requirement for the two are the same. The traffic patterns are different, but they will be covered in what's included. And basically, if this application is approved and somewhere down the road during site plan approval, the applicant decides to change from a 90,000 square foot retail use to a 90,000 square foot medical office use, we can submit that to the building department, and we can indicate to the building department that the Board of Appeals has been provided with information on that, so that when they go back to the Board of Appeals and ask the Board of Appeals if it has been taken into consideration, the board will have that information in hopes of avoiding having to go back for a whole new process of hearings and notice and the like. So you'll hear that testimony as well. But at this point, first I'll call upon Mr. Nelson, our real estate expert, to address the special use permit criteria for the hotel, as well as the overall impact or lack thereof of adding these two pad sites to the property. Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Nelson? address on the record?
It's Barry Nelson, 320 Pettit Avenue, Belmore, New York, 11710. Good afternoon.
You have any busy afternoon today? All right, since the last time we qualified you as an expert on real estate and real estate valuation, if there are any changes in your credentials?
No, sir.
All right, you will continue your qualification as an expert and you will be testifying.
Without repeating what Council has mentioned, the crux of the application would be for a special use permit for the hotel, a special use permit to exceed floor area ratio and square footage for the hotel, and similar applications except for the no need for an office building, the special exception, but for floor area ratio and square footage of the proposed retail area. The majority of this development is, actually all of this development is on the southerly side of the mall, closest to the south side of Ring Road and near Stewart Avenue. As Council mentioned, there are parts of the mall area in the incorporated village of Garden City, and that would include the office buildings 100, 200, 300, and 400. Garden City Plaza, which is on the westerly side, and the recently completed Marriott Residence Inn, which would be the footpath that's going westerly on the southerly end. The area, I've done many applications, and this board has heard many applications, could be considered an extension off of Merrick Avenue, going westerly to the mall, Zeckendorf Boulevard, Axon Avenue, and so on throughout that area. Then you come to the mall on the southerly side, and the retail office would be proposed at the southeast corner of the mall area, accessed off of Ring Road, South Street, Stewart Avenue, and the hotel would be just to the westerly side, within the Ring Road, south of the parking garages. Interestingly, the special use application for a hotel, and probably one of the oldest hotels that were before, no, I shouldn't say oldest, but within the last 20 to 25 years, hotels that were constructed in the area would be the La Quinta, which is just outside the mall on the north side of Stewart Avenue and 821 Stewart Avenue. And that was constructed pursuant to similar variances, special use permits that included the hotel use, and on its own site, a FAR in the industrial district. FAR in the industrial district is 0.40. That came before the board for for FAR and the special use. The FAR in that development was 0.81. Probably the next application would be the Red Roof Inn at 699 Digley Drive, and that would be just outside the mall, easterly, off of Digley Road and Action Road to the east. That's a hotel that was 5 stories, exceeded FAR, has approximately 163 rooms, required special use for the hotel. We have numerous other hotels, the Hyatt Place and the Hampton Inn, just north of the east and north of Zeckendorf Boulevard at 5 North Avenue and 1 North Avenue. Both of those exceeded the 0.40 FAR, and between the two of them, combined, it's almost a joint venture at that location, even though they were constructed at different times, and they have a total in excess of 1.06 FAR for the two. Nevertheless, you have on Bravado Road, the Hilton Garden Inn, Bravado Road, that's at 1575. That was in 2003. Thereafter, the Courtyard by Marriott at 1800 Bravado Road. They all came before this court over the last 25 years. The most recently would be the Courtyard by Marriott. Subsequent to those constructions, you do have other constructions that came after the hotel. The Vanderbilt, which is a apartment building, does have some rental rooms in the building, and it has a restaurant and some special services to the tenants. You have the Avalon, you have recently under renovation at 867 Eastgate Boulevard, which is now, I think it was a child's play, child's goods, now it's Whole Foods Market. What I'm saying is that hotels in itself is not a detriment to the future development of other parcels in the area, especially fits well within the special use criteria. All of those uses came before this board for FAR as well, and those FARs were under the industrial district 0.40, and some of them went in excess of 1 point so-and-so. The average was about 0.75, 0.8. In comparison to what the applicant is seeking, 0.70 is permitted, 0.72 is requested. Even today, with the field as it is, you still have new construction in the area. You got Carvana putting up a new display for used vehicles.
That might be iffy at this point.
Yeah. No, you're right. But nevertheless, the construction.
It was grand.
Right. So the request for the special uses exceed FAR. The use is already well within it. In fact, I can go on. There's at least 6 to 7 hotels in the area in the last 25 years without any detriment to the surrounding community. The FARs have exceeded in the industrial district of 0.4 in excess of 1.5. In fact, you have I think it's Lifetime Fitness in the area. You have self-storage facilities. And probably the most recent development would be the Bristol's Assisted Living, which would be just off of Zekadorf Boulevard, and that is a recently constructed facility in 2017. Seek variances and relief for lot area and parking as well. So, in totality, summation, the requested special use permits. The hotel's already located in the Garden City side, and it is a special use in the Garden City Village code as well. And FAR, square footage, is not going to be detrimental to the future growth of this area. Thank you, Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Unless there are any questions of Mr. Nelson, I'll call upon Mr. Patrick Monahan, the traffic expert.
Mr. Vanessa, you'll probably get to it with one of your experts. Would that expert be able to answer my question with regard to water availability for a high user like a proposed hotel, since Mr. Nelson just testified there?
We do have Andrew B. here from PhD Engineering. I'm sure he can come up and address that question.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Patrick Monahan. I am the director of the Transportation Division at VHB's Long Island office in Hoppo, and congratulations for your longevity on the board and your retirement from the board.
Thank you.
17 years is a long time.
Yeah, it is. All right. And you're coming in as an expert on traffic and parking?
Correct.
All right. And you qualified you previously as an expert?
Yes.
Since the last time we qualified you as an expert in those areas, have we been any changes in your credentials?
There is none.
Okay, then we're going to continue your qualifications as an expert, and you want me to testify.
Thank you. Good afternoon. VHB was retained by the property owner to evaluate the project in the areas of transportation and parking. That evaluation included the development of 2 pad sites and looking at the realignment of the ring road. The study was performed in accordance with standard traffic engineering practices and procedures. And I want to note that the scope of the study was developed in consultation with the Nassau County Department of Public Works Traffic Division to make sure that we had all of their concerns handled as well. The traffic study evaluated typical elements, as you're probably familiar with, traffic safety, access, parking, of particular interest to this board, future volumes and capacity to that. In that regard, we evaluated a total of 11 intersections on the site and off the site. As was mentioned by Bill, the proposed project includes a significant redevelopment of the southern portion of the site and what we refer to as the Ring Road South and Ring Road West. As I'm sure the board is aware, the current geometry of that area on the site is pretty unique. I'm trying to be nice. It's a little out of the ordinary. There are large median areas, chutes for U-turns, motorists in the area. If their destination is on the north side and they're on the south side, you have to travel past and make a U-turn to come back. If you drive through there, you can tell which motorists are familiar and which ones are not. There's a lot of moving going on. So as part of this project, the plan is to convert the Ring Road into a much more conventional roadway. It'll make more sense to people who use it more frequently, and it'll make a lot more sense to folks who might be there occasionally. Another benefit of consolidating the Ring Road and eliminating those called bubbles. The folks that do wind up parking there, although infrequently, it will eliminate the pedestrian cost of the Ring Road, which is something we always like to do. So in addition to freeing up real estate for this project, there are benefits to modifying the Ring Road that go to basic traffic engineering and pedestrian safety. So
Before you go on, I've provided to Mr. Owens one copy of the full study with all the appendices, plus additional copies of the report itself, which summarizes the findings and conclusions.
So the detailed analysis of the traffic conditions at the site include the existing condition of the Ring Road configured the way it is today, but also include the future condition with the reconfigured Ring Road to a much more conventional situation, and the addition of the traffic that we would expect to see with, in this case, the larger study looks at a 90,000 square foot supermarket, and I'll get to what the implications are if that should be something else, and the development of the hotel. What we find is the traffic can be accommodated on the new Ring Road and the surrounding roadway system with only small increases in delay as you would expect. We all know there's congestion around the mall currently a lot of times, but the point is it will not make it significantly worse. In regard to the parking, as Bill noted, the site is in a variant situation versus the applicable code for this regional mall of about 5%. To ensure that there was adequate parking, we performed demand observations on actually the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, the worst day that we see at really any sort of retail. In addition to providing this board with the information to hopefully support the variance, our client, the property owner, certainly wanted to make sure that this project would not encumber the mall with a situation that wasn't positive. So we looked at the level of vacant parking on the entire mall site all day long, and we found several hundred vacant spaces. The peak of the mall on Black Friday was 3 o'clock p.m. So with the reconfiguration of the ring road, and as Bill said, those vehicles that are stored in those bubbles, as I call them, will not be there. They'll be eliminated. So there were 250 some odd stored vehicles. When the ring road gets, the west side of the ring road gets pushed south, that opens up additional parking as well, and the elimination of those vehicles, such that at 3 p.m. the mall has an additional capacity that approaches about 700 vehicles. So the next step is to look at the supermarket and the hotel. What do they need at peak and what do they need at 3 o'clock? And the final answer is that at 3 o'clock there are a couple of hundred vacant stalls over and above what those uses would require.
The location of the vacant stalls, are they a reasonably short distance from those spots, or are they over on Old Country Road?
Most of them are in the immediate vicinity of the two pad sites because they don't exist now.
The reason I asked is I've made nasty comments before about people parking on Long Island.
Right.
There's an easy way and a hard way. They're parking right next door to where
Yeah.
And we hear every well, there's like 500 parking spots, but they're half a mile away. People are not going to park there.
Black Friday is a once a year condition, and we all know what the mall looks like. But we also took a look at the orange parking pack, which is immediately adjacent to this supermarket pad that used to be pad. And even the days leading up immediately before Thanksgiving and immediately before Christmas, there are hundreds and hundreds of vacant stores in that parking. Also, if it is a supermarket, we use the full demand for parking on that Black Friday. I don't know about you, but on Black Friday, I'm recovering from Thanksgiving and I'm not going to.
Black Friday is not a supermarket day.
I'm not going to. And if it was an office, truth be told, it's likely to be closed on Black Friday. So I'd like to, make that known as well. So, as Bill noted, there is a chance that the easterly pad site gets developed as something other than a supermarket. The cover letter that we issued as an addendum to the overall traffic study looked at it as a 90,000 square foot medical office. So the 90,000 square foot medical office would likely be 3 stories instead of 1. So the footprint shrinks.
I'm just trying in my mind. We just approved the amounts on that building. I'm trying to get an idea of what the square footage was of that building. 60? So this is basically about 30 acre.
So the footprint shrinks by 2/3, which frees up additional parking, and medical office wouldn't hit the demand that a supermarket would generally hit anyway. So the end result of that would be additional parking. And again, I'm sorry.
Just one question. Where that medical office or the proposed medical office might be, is that where the buses are?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you would move those? No.
If you look at the plan, you'll see the bus depot to the west.
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Perry. That is presently where the bus depot is. Simon is committed to maintaining the bus depot on site. It would simply be moved west of that, but it would still be there to accommodate the mass transit needs of the community.
Thank you. So other options for the property could be other retail. At that point, it would act, really act, the supermarket and the medical office, we treat it, separate from the mall in terms of trip generation and parking. In reality, there will be some symbiotic relationship, and if it were to be regular retail, that relationship would be stronger, and the parking and the traffic would likely be lower than what was analyzed in the report. So that's really the conclusion of our studies. So in my professional opinion, were the board to allow for the sort variance and the property were developed in this manner, a problem related to traffic or parking would not develop. And I thank you for your time, and I will answer any further questions you may have.
Any ideas about, just mentioned it to Mr. Pellegrini, I've been in shopping areas in Florida where they're huge, laid out separately, where this is a fairly large area, where they run like golf carts, shuttle buses around the area, just let people travel around. Any ideas for any type of plan like that?
Let me call out Mr. Shea.
It may be funny, but it's not that far-fetched. 10 seaters.
I think that's a good idea.
Hello, I'm Steve Shea with Sun, and we're at 225 West Washington Street.
Mr. Shea is the Vice President of Mall Development for Simon, and certainly, I don't know that there are any plans on having golf carts running around, but everything I learn about malls and the changing horizon, I get from Steve, so I think he can at least give you an overview of what's to come.
Yeah, because obviously our concern with parking that is spread out over a huge area and demands may be in certain places around the mall. As I said, people, you're familiar with it already. People in Long Island don't walk great distances to go shopping, especially if they're going to be carrying bags or whatever, especially for supermarkets. So, I mean, I'm just trying to come up with some idea that whatever is really being proposed can accommodate the local parking traffic for each given spot of the mall.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Part of this site layout was making use of a very underutilized portion of the property, so as a roundabout answer to your earlier question, this is where the spaces we're wanting, and this is where the development is. So to the extent that these users would have proximate parking in big business spaces with no oil stains that haven't seen a customer for maybe ever, we're very much in the convenience business. Our merchants aren't selling a lot of things that people need. So if it's not fun and it's not easy, they don't come. And so making sure customers can get around to various brands is very much front of mind for us. We have done circulation shuttles in certain projects, usually to your point in the south, usually in open air centers. We've studied, you may have seen the memes, when someone goes to the mall, they're going here and here and here, and they leave 10,000 steps later very happy with armfuls of bags. So making sure people can get to the brands that they want is top of mind to us. Very rarely do we see them move the car. Sometimes someone will park here, maybe go and pop out a trip and then move the car someplace else, but they normally park in circulation.
And now I'm going to have a call upon Mr. Andrew Mead, engineer with DHB, to address some of the questions that I think Mr. Pellegrini may have. And just to preface what Mr. Mead is going to say, obviously, water availability, sewer, grading and drainage, all of that will be addressed in detail during site plan review, and consequently that is still to come. That is when the real engineering takes place. But I think Mr. Mead can at least address the question about water availability.
Square from truth for the whole truth.
Good afternoon. Andrew Mead with DHB Engineering offices at 100 Motor Parkway, located in Colorado. To answer your question, sir, related to water consumption, you are correct that compared to retail, a hotel use would demand more water based on Nassau County design sewage flow rates, which is how we most appropriately estimate water consumption. It's 150 gallons per day per hotel room. So that is significantly higher. However, with those standards being quite dated at this time and provisions for sustainability and such, low flow water fixtures, I would say that is very conservative. So with 170 units, that's approximately 25,000 gallons per day. However, again, I've done studies for apartment buildings where it's more appropriate to even 100 gallons per day
guess my pointed question was, does the existing wells that the town has and maintain, there's a pollution problem around it. I'm not suggesting that don't even call me as an official, but someone who works for the town. Rumor has it that there might be water pollution problems there. I live in Wanto. I know I could say truthfully, there's a water pollution problem. Brumming really did us in. Roosevelt Field during World War II had dumped a lot of stuff there. There are wells, I think, in Roosevelt Field area, over by what Home Depot used to be, that have been maybe shut down to put in air strippers. Is the town, have you petitioned the town to find out whether or not they will sign off on this hotel project? This is number 7, I think Mr. Nelson said. There's a lot of water that's being drawn. Does the infrastructure support that?
Understood. So related to a water availability letter, we do not have one from the Town of Hempstead Water District. This property falls within their jurisdiction, but as Mr. Vanessa alluded to, as part of the next steps, if this application is granted, that will be one of our first steps, is to get commitment from water, sewer, and other utility service providers for this application. As far as the infrastructure is concerned, distribution, having worked in this area historically, I know there's a 16-inch water main running through the property. So infrastructure-based conveyance to the site, that shouldn't be an issue. And I would expect that to be the response from Town of Hempstead Water District. With regards to the well sites,
I don't think distribution is the issue.
Understood.
Supply is the
yes,
issue.
and we're seeing that consistently across the entire island related to these regulations and such.
We draw water from the aquifers are getting sucked out and being replaced with whatever filters down through the ground. And as I believe there's still a federal moratorium on drilling below the Magothy, which I don't know if you're familiar with all that stuff, but it won't let you touch the void aquifer, so you're stuck with the Magothy.
That's waterfront, yeah.
And there is saltwater intrusion, iron intrusion, everything else coming in. It has to be a water condition.
Yes.
So
you're absolutely right.
These are all things that have to come into play. And I know there was a history on this board. We've heard of it many times in the past. Of major projects in that area that where water may become an issue. But also the water table in some places is an issue there also. But I don't know if it is where this is.
With regards to groundwater and stormwater design, one issue, as you know, is the charge based on the site contribute. We've done detailed analysis of that as well and know that that site adequately accommodated this because we're actually reducing impervious coverage. So there's less paving if this application is to be constructed. So to circle back, to your original question, yes, one of the next steps associated with this would be to reach out to the Town of Hempstead Water and obtain commitment from them and understand if there's any constraints with regards to distribution, we don't believe, or as far as well pumpage at any of their sites and any concerns with contamination or not.
I guess the procedure would be that, assume that the board would approve this project. If the Commissioner of Water, after his study and analysis, says, hey, this is really stretching it with this size of a retail store and another hotel. What do you do next, Mr. Vanessa? How do you handle this? Scale back, or do you?
We've got a significant issue because, and as you know, this board can approve this, and it doesn't mean that we get to build these. We have to go and make sure that there's water availability and there's the other things that get reviewed during site plan review. If there's an issue that arises with that, we've got to come up with a solution. If we can't come up with a solution, then we don't get to do this.
The solution could be perhaps reducing the size of the hotel.
It could be, or it could be additional wells, it could be whatever the case may be to address the need. Yes, we can bring in a bunch of bottled water, but that's not good either.
No, it isn't.
Plastic bottles, so we'll have to come up with something.
I'm sorry, I missed it. How are you reducing the impervious coverage? I apologize.
So the majority of the southern portion of the mall property is parking lot today, as you mentioned earlier, related to just storing new vehicles for delivery to new dealers. So by resulting in construction of the new buildings, which are 100% impervious, we're also implementing a lot of landscaping associated with that. So the EAF submitted, we're actually increasing landscape coverage over the entire mall complex.
Right, so just the portion of the parking lot that's changed to
It's going to be
landscape
constructed to
islands.
new town standards, incorporating landscape islands and such. and would increase landscape coverage at the end of the day.
And I apologize, Mr. Vanessa, I think I missed it because I had to step out. As it relates to the proposed retail, I mean, I've used that exit many times where it comes down straight to Nordstrom and the bus area, I'm familiar with it. So obviously the proposed structure is right in that, so are they going to, is it, you had mentioned earlier, change some parts of it to two-way. So is that what it would be, you come off and instead of going the way it normally would go, they split the other one into two-way? Where's the car going? The structure that's being placed in the middle of that, generally where you come off, turn left, Nordstrom's ahead of you, turn left and go around and bus things on your right, that's now blocked. So how is that rerouted? I apologize for this.
So you're talking about where we're putting the proposed retail?
Correct.
Okay. So the ring road will operate outside of that area. The ring road will be entirely outside of that. It will run
where it already is for one dimension.
Correct.
So they're going to have that be two-way.
It'll be two-way.
And there's enough, I mean, that's kind of, there's a lot of traffic on that usually, so I guess, is it going to widen or are they just going to?
So, as part of our detailed traffic analysis, we're obviously concluding proposal mitigation to result in the conclusions that Mr. Lenihan outlined. The final alignment and configuration is not 100% engineered, but in the models that were produced, essentially, we're able to consolidate take the parking and shift it inboard of the ring road, shift the ring road to the periphery, and construct new traffic modifications to result in the level of service that we're concluding.
In layman's terms, there's what, 2 or 3 lanes? How many lanes will still be going one direction?
Right. Essentially, the ring road in its entirety is 2 lanes in either direction. So it'd be a 4-lane road, exclusive of turning lane.
Okay, so you're saying it would still be
2 lanes.
2 lanes in each direction?
Correct. Plus turning lane.
Okay.
Mr. Vanessa, back to the water. Do you need a sign off from the fire department? Whatever, Roosevelt Garden City or whatever area.
Again, during site plan review, the fire district will be contacted. They'll have input on this as well. All of the local departments and divisions, including DPW, everybody's going to have a review and comment on this. So this first step, as you know, is to obtain the relief that would allow us to go and obtain those items. Without your approval, we don't get the site plan.
How about the environmental review? Has that been long environmental assessment forms?
We submitted a full environmental assessment to the board, and the board adopted the main deck, as I understand.
Just quickly, we get back to fire marshal. We submitted an application with Nassau County Fire Marshal. Obviously, prior to construction, we need their review.
Does the fire marshal review for local fire departments requirements?
It is a review, and we also, as Mr. Vanessa said, we would meet with the local fire department just to confirm. But they're looking from a code perspective. They review it. They don't actually issue approvals. But then there's also the local.
But the fire marshal would safety of the building, sprinklers, etc., and egresses, and
that will happen
with the fire marshal
with construction or submission of 100% construction documents. Fire sure they're contracted.
Thank you.
And that's really the best time to assess those abilities, because conceptual drawings, you really can't assess the total gallonage and the life in terms of what you need. So that's why it all occurs during site plan review, when you actually have engineered plans and architectural plans.
Okay. Have you addressed parking yet? Parking shortage and requirements and shortage? You've done that?
Yes, Mr. Lenihan testified to that. Do you have any questions?
No.
And we did submit the report that a full copy of the report with all the appendices, as well as copies of the summaries, and we also submitted the supplement that addresses the potential use as a medical officer. So that is all part of it.
Just as an aside, my notation here indicates that we have not adopted a secret resolution.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay. Just for all of us to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless the board has any further questions, that's our direct presentation. Nassau County Planning Commission is actually taking this up tomorrow, and they've asked me to appear and provide them with information tomorrow, so consequently, I imagine the board will be waiting for that determination, and then can address this at the beginning of the new year.
Thank you.
All right, does anybody else here that needs to be heard? I think so. All right, do I have any other questions from the board?
I move that the hearing be closed, the matter be placed on the decision counter, with Mr. Vanessa review your your client, and everyone else who appears as experts or otherwise in the case will receive the board's decision by mail once it is ready.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Next, we have cases 845.22, 847.22, Inwood 175 LLC, 41 LLC. Special exception to the C4 area ratio, variances in front yard setback on Roger Avenue, Gates Avenue, a portion of which is within the rear side triangle of Willow Street, construct warehouse. Variance in office parking, installed one attached double-faced monument sign, 9 feet square feet. Setback 8 feet from Roger Avenue, 1 foot side property. Install second detached double-faced monument sign, 92.9 total square feet. Setback 5 feet from the Gates Avenue, 10 feet from the side property. Southeast corner of Roger Avenue.
Inwood 175 LLC and Inwood 41 LLC. The applicants are the owners together of the property on the southwest corner of Roger Avenue and Gates Avenue. And the proposal before the board today is seeking relief to permit the redevelopment of that property, which is situated within the industrial water district, with a new 69,698 square foot warehouse with, as opposed 6,300 square feet of office space therein. The project, or the property, I should say, is a site that has some history in the area. I'm going to submit to the board some booklets that will be used to review. It provides a great deal of information about the property and the project. I'm also going to submit a memo from Fleming Luchu Environmental Management Consulting, dated today, providing an environmental history of the property.
We'll accept all that evidence.
With me today is Mr. Adam Mann. He is the principal of the LLCs that are the owners of the property. We also have Mr. Barry Nelson as our real estate expert, and Mr. Frank Vilchoto of Pt2 as our traffic and parking expert. So as noted, the application has some history without going into tremendous detail, because the detail is in the environmental memo that we gave you. This site has a history as a warehouse, as an industrial use, and actually as a metalworks facility a long time ago. And there was quite a bit of contamination on this site. The property fell into the hands of the county as a result of unpaid taxes, and for quite some time it was held by the county. There was another entity that sought to acquire it from the county and clean it up. For whatever reason, that entity could not get the job done. They couldn't get the cleanup performed and completed. And along came my client, who negotiated with the county and obtained the rights to the property, and he has secured a complete remediation of the property and is very close to obtaining his DEC sign-offs on that remediation. So at this point, he prepared to move forward with his proposed redevelopment, and that proposed redevelopment is for the warehouse use that is before the board. In order to do so, he is requesting relief from the industrial line district both provisions. The building proposed will have 5-foot front yard setbacks on both Rogers and Gates, with a portion of the corner at Rocker Avenue and Gates Avenue protruding into the clear sight triangle. Our traffic expert will address that and make it clear to the board that, or at least his testimony will show that it will not negatively impact vehicular movement around the area. Additionally, we need a small floor area ratio. Special exception permitted is 0.4. We're at 0.44, as we'll hear from Mr. Nelson. There are a number of other buildings in the area that have FARs far in excess of what we are proposing. And then we also need a parking variance based upon the requirements of the building with its warehouse and office space. It requires a total of 96 spaces. We are providing 68 spaces. That said, 32 of those office spaces, or rather those parking spaces, are associated with our office space, and as you'll hear in the testimony, the actual need will be much lower than that. It's not uncommon for warehouses like this to generate a parking demand of 8 to 10 parking spaces. So consequently, we feel certainly that we're well over parked, but and in fact, the fact of the matter is the actual number of office square footage may vary. It won't exceed the 10,000 square feet that we've indicated. The 6,300 square feet that we've indicated. More likely, it'll be probably about half of that, or about 5% of the total warehouse square footage. That's typically what's seen. We went high on the office space in order to get the variance as needed in the event that a user did come in and want more office space than is typically the case. So, as indicated, we are proposing 6,300 square feet of office space right now, which requires 32 parking spaces, and the likelihood, the strong likelihood, as you'll hear, is that there will be far less parking spaces needed than that. But be that as it may, it's a parking variance seeking 68 spaces as opposed to the 96 required. So one of the things that my client, Mr. Mann, does is he's very, very proactive about engaging the community. And you'll see in the package that I submitted, there are a number of letters actually in support of this application. And I also provided copies of those letters to Mr. Owens. We've had communications not just with Mr. D'Agostino, who's here, who represents a client to the north of us, but Mr. Mann has reached out to the local civic association. He's met with residential neighbors. He's met with other groups in the area, and he has, to his credit, secured quite a bit of support for this application, and as far as we know, no opposition to it. The prior building that was on this property ran right up to the southerly property line, adjacent to the backyards of those residences to the south of the property. And that building, while not as tall as the building we're proposing, I think it was something like 32 or 34 feet tall. That was a 32 to 34 foot tall wall right behind those residences. Mr. Mann has designed this to move the building as far north as possible. In fact, asking for the setback variances on Rogers and Gates in order to provide a much more open area behind the property, to the south side of the property, if you will, and provide a lot more open space behind those residences to the west of Cerro, and actually to the west and east of Cerro Street. And mentioning Cerro Street, I will point out that we are in the process of abandoning a portion of Cerro Street that is improved, but actually is not owned by the town. It is not part of the town roadway system, but it is improved. That's being abandoned and will be owned by my client, and it will be made part of the overall project. We had asserted to the building department that we might need a use variance because when you have abandoned roadway, it becomes Residence B district. They said you don't need to worry about that. We don't, as it's not part of the overall use of the application of the site. We don't deem it to be the need for a use variance. So that's why that's not advertised. But we did raise it to the building department. So all that being said, it is proposed to be a warehouse use, and it is a common use in the area. As you'll hear from Mr. Filchotto, the main source of access to the property will be on Gates Avenue. Roger Avenue is a one-way street from the corner of Gates going east. It travels away from our property, so trucks and other users cannot come on Rogers to our property. And rather they will come on Bayview, which is the street situated to the south, and then they'll come up Gates and access the property from there. Some vehicles, mostly we expect passenger vehicles, will move all the way up Gates and onto Roger and then come down the driveway that does front on Roger. But we expect the vast majority of our traffic to occur on Gates Avenue at the intersection or at the curb cut that we have on the east side of Gates Avenue. That is where all our truck bays are, and that's where all the activity will be. For safety purposes, having the passenger vehicles come on with Roger and not conflict with that loading and unloading area. That's where you'll see probably your passenger vehicles coming in and going out. Some trucks may exit onto Roger, but we expect the vast majority of trucks to enter and exit from the gates. So that being said, that's an overview of the application. As mentioned, I've gone through the reliefs that we require. I'll now call upon, unless the board has questions, I'll call upon Mr. Nelson to provide his testimony in connection with the character of the neighborhood, the standards for the setback variances, and the FAR overage.
It's Barry Nelson, 220 Pettit Avenue, Belmore, New York, 11711.
All right, Mr. Nelson, since the last time we qualified you, I think this is the fourth time this afternoon. Have there been any changes in your credentials?
No, sir.
All right, we're going to continue your qualifications as an expert on real estate valuation.
Thank you.
Walk through your testimony.
I have photographs of the subject property and the surrounding area. I have some aerial views and a location map before to visualize the location and the surrounding uses.
Accept all that evidence.
Thank you. So, I have worked in this area on numerous occasions. In fact, one case that's still pending would be from June 27, 2018, Inwood Realty Associates, which would be right across the street on your radius map. At that time, when I began working on that application, this property was still improved with the onerous improvements, buildings, and at that time, I did take photographs, I don't have them, but it would be found in my previous application for across the street under cases 1423 through 1427, 2018. The property had improvements. The improvements include, as council mentioned, right up to the southerly property line. In fact, it was right up to the property line on Gates Avenue. The buildings had substantial damage. It was onerous to the surrounding community. What's before the board today is a new building that's been cleaned up. And as council mentioned, the FAR and the setbacks would be what I'd be addressing now. As far as on Roger Avenue, council mentioned it was 5 feet. It's 5 feet to the stoops and 10 feet to the building. And the stoops do encroach into the 5 foot to 10 foot. But the building itself, the building is 10 feet and 5 feet on Gates Avenue. How does that relate to the improvements surrounding the subject property? And you'll look at my photographs, and if the board was to visit the location, you'll see that the building right across the street at 150 Roger Avenue maintains for the good part of its frontage of 300 feet, 300 plus feet, 340 feet, has a 5 foot setback on the northerly side of Roger Avenue. The case that I had mentioned, Inwood Realty Associates across the street, that is looking for a recycling plant for dirt and gravel. It's still pending. And then on to the northwest of the subject property is parking. The property to the west of the property, subject property is improved with warehouse-type facilities, similar to what's being proposed in today's application. The easterly side of Gates Avenue has 3 buildings. They all have front yard setbacks similar to what's being proposed on the application of the subject property of 5 feet, and that would be inclusive of the northeast corner of Gates Avenue and Bayview Avenue. The next building, as well as the southeast corner of Roger Avenue and Gates Avenue. I provided aerial views and photographs to support my testimony. The fact that we just go to 1 block north, and as far as front yard setback, this would be consistent with many of the buildings in the area, including the northeast corner of Cherry Avenue and Bayview Avenue, 1 block to the east. It's a area strictly industrial to the north and west of the subject property. Eastbound, you have, east of the industrial zone, you do have residences, single-family homes built in the early 1900s, non-conforming on smaller lots. Nevertheless, as far as the front yard setbacks, the proposed application enables the building to be constructed on the site, providing greatest setbacks to the residences found on the north side of Bayview Avenue, subject block, and the 2 corner houses on Sierra Street at Bayview Avenue. It also provides, by moving the building to easily ingress and egress to the site from Roger Avenue versus on the corner of Gates Avenue and Roger Avenue. As far as the FAR, which is a special use permit, FAR, floor area ratio, was introduced to the industrial zone in 1989. The majority of the buildings in the area, industrial buildings, were constructed pre-1989. And that would be a perfect example to the building to the west of the subject property, which would be the newest building, constructed late 1987, 1988. pre-FAR requirements in the industrial zone, and that is on just under 5 acres, approximately 150,000 square feet of warehouse at 0.70 for FAR. As council mentioned, for the applicant, which is almost, in my opinion, a de minimis request for an FAR in the industrial zone, 0.42, approximately 4,000 square feet over on the requirement on 3.676 acres or 68,000 plus square feet. It's a reasonable request. If I can continue, you would find many of the buildings, the northeast corner of Bayview Avenue and Gates Avenue, a warehouse building that provides very limited parking, if any, has a FAR of 0.55, a 0.755. But that was built in 1956. The next building to the north, opposite the subject property, which would be 22 Gates Avenue, that has an FAR of 0.68, and that was built in 1965, of course, prior to the FAR requirement. The southeast corner of Gates Avenue, Roger Avenue, that was before the board, and that has a small building, but it has an FAR of 0.744. Just going outside the area, again, I've covered just about the last property would be the one on the north side. Sony Pictures Entertainment is a warehouse comparable to the subject property. It is 116,000 square feet of warehouse space with a 0.60 FAR. One last parcel I'll get into would be the northeast corner of Bayview Avenue and Cherry Street, built 1969. It has setbacks similar to what's being proposed in today's application on a corner, and an FAR of 0.555%.
All significantly greater than that requested today, which you characterized as de minimis in that area.
Yes. So that, in summation, the area variances for the front yard setbacks in keeping with pattern of development for other industrial buildings in this area, and the 267D2 special exception requirement. I believe the applicant meets and exceeds all of those minimum requirements for special use permit. It's a perfect redevelopment of the subject site that had been a onerous parcel, had been vacant for many years, and now will have a new warehouse building back on the tax rolls, and it will generate substantial real estate taxes for the county, for the town, and for the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
If the board has any questions of Mr. Nelson, I'll call upon Mr. Frank Show, and I do apologize, Mr. Nelson is correct. I indicated the 5-foot front yard setback on Rogers, in fact, 10-foot front yard setback for the building. I also indicated the incorrect square footage for the warehouse. I said 69,698. It's actually only 68,000.
That's why you have Mr. Nelson.
16 square feet. I was looking at a prior plan.
But that's why you have Mr. Nelson, right, Mr. Vanessa?
That's why I have Mr. Nelson. He fails me now. That said, I also have Mr. Filoshoto, who has been recognized by this board on multiple occasions as a traffic parking expert, authorized patient testimony in connection with such items. I would ask that he be qualified to and permitted to do so.
Not until he signs it. Okay, Mr. Filoshoto, name and address on the record, please. Name and address on the record.
Yes, good afternoon. Frank A. Filicito, F as in Frank, I-L-I-C-I-O-T-T-O, with the firm Great Manning Engineering, 145 Main Street, Allison, New York, 10562.
And you are being proposed as an expert on what? Traffic and parking. And we previously been qualified as an expert.
Yes, sir.
And since the last time we qualified as an expert, have there been any changes in your credentials?
There have not.
Okay, so we're going to continue your certification as an expert, and you want to be present.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good afternoon. You've heard a lot of testimony already. I don't want to be overly duplicitous, but I'll just run through a couple of the stats here that are mostly relevant to my area of expertise. And just for the record, we did submit a traffic and parking study dated December 2nd, 2022, that I believe is in your packets, and I can go through some of the highlights. We're proposing, as you mentioned, a 68,016 square foot warehouse. What had been previously on this property was almost twice as large. So when you consider the fact that we're building around 6,800 square feet, we're able to provide a lot more parking than had been on this property historically. In total, 68 standard vehicle parking spaces and 16 loading docks for a total of 84 parking spaces will support the proposed development. In terms of access, we're proposing one full movement driveway on Roger Avenue and one full movement driveway on Gates Avenue. The critical thing here is that based on the orientation of the building, as you can see, it's facing to the south. Gates Avenue is the most logical and will be the designated access point for all heavy vehicles such as trucks. Passenger vehicles, support staff, people who drive smaller vehicles can certainly enter there, as well as on Roger, but really, based on the roadway geometry in the surrounding area, and I'll get to that in a moment, Gates Avenue will take the majority of the traffic. It's actually the first driveway that the majority of the traffic will actually reach when they come to this site. In terms of the roadway network, on the top of the plan here, this is the aerial plan that's before you. Roger Avenue runs east-west, Bayview Avenue is at the bottom in parallel. Gates Avenue intersects both of those roadways at unsignalized intersections. What's important to note is that Roger Avenue, east of the site, is one-way road eastbound, which means that you cannot come to the site via Roger Avenue. You must enter the site using Bayview Avenue with a right turn onto Gates. So for that reason, the Gates Avenue driveway will be the first and most logical point to access the site for really all vehicles, but certainly trucks based on the orientation of the loading docks, and there are 16 loading docks. Roger Avenue also has a weight limit restriction of 8,000 pounds, which is only 4 tons. So any trucks that are outbound from this site cannot use Roger Avenue unless they are under the 8,000 pound limit. So that's really to protect, in my opinion, to protect the residential houses that lie to the east between here and Sheridan Boulevard. So those vehicles will leave on Gates, make a left turn onto Bayview, and circulate directly to the east out of the area. I want to mention Bayview also directly connects not only with Sheridan Boulevard at a signalized intersection, but also with Nassau Expressway. So it is a very logical place for trucks to come in and out, get good connectivity with the major highways in the area from which to come and go. In terms of our traffic study, we looked at those two intersections, Sheridan and Roger, and Sheridan and Bayview, they're both signalized intersections. We wanted to understand how they operate and how this project would potentially affect them. We studied the AM, PM, and actually Saturday midday peak hours, even though warehouses tend to be a lot less active on the weekends. We found that currently those intersections operate at level of service B or better. So on the hierarchy of the level of service scale, B is second best, only to A. In terms of trip generation, what this project will generate, this project, when you consider the ITE trip generation manual, which is the industry standard manual for projecting traffic, this project will generate fewer than 40 vehicle trips in any of the peak hours. Really, the threshold that we look at is 100. 100 is potentially impactful, and we oftentimes base our traffic studies on that number. We're only generating 40, in fact less than 40 in this particular case, but still do the traffic study anyway. And based on our analysis, the levels of service will be maintained at those intersections, which means that this project will not have any noticeable impact on traffic operations. Relative to variances, Mr. Nelson touched on them, Mr. Vanessa touched on them. We're seeking four variances that have a traffic component to them that I'll comment on. The front yard setback requirement of 20 feet, where we're providing 10 and 5, so we're short there. The monument sign, we have a shortage in terms of the clearance underneath the sign. 7 is required when we're providing 1 foot. And then the clear sight triangle at the intersection of Roger Avenue and Gates, where the building comes up nearly to the corner. We looked at the site, the required sight lines per industry standards for all of those factors. With respect to the front yard setback and the monument sign, we've shown in our traffic study that the sight lines that are required will not be impeded by either the building or the monument sign. So the monument sign, the purpose of the clearance underneath is so that you, if it is in the sight triangle, you can see underneath it. The monument sign is not within the sight triangle, so the clearance underneath it is not as important of a factor. So in terms of those two variances, those will not cause a traffic concern. The clear sight triangle at Roger and Gates, this is an interesting point because typically you want to have enough sight distance at an intersection to see far down the road. In this particular case, Roger Avenue and Gates Avenue are both controlled by stop signs. It's an always stop intersection, which means that you must stop. And per the AASHTO requirements, AASHTO is American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. They lay out the guidelines for sight distance. At an always stop intersection, the requirement is for everyone at an approach to be able to see their counterpart at another approach. And at this intersection, if you're at a stop line, you can see the other stop lines at this intersection without the building getting in the way. So despite the fact that the building is in the clear sight triangle as defined by the town, it will not obstruct sight distance at the intersection.
How far setback is it this direction of Roger?
The building? Yeah. The building is 10 feet back from the property line, which is approximately 15 or 16 back from the edge of the pavement. And to the advance. Finally, parking, which is the last variance I would like to just talk about. We're seeking a variance from 94 required vehicles. We're able to provide space for 84 vehicles. That's composed of 68 standard spaces and 16 loading spaces.
I think it's from 96.
Yes, and that was again based upon the wrong plan.
Oh, yes,
That's why I apologize. It's 94.
It's 94. So we're seeking a variance of 10 spaces. What we look at is similar. We look at the Institute of Transportation's parking generation manual for guidance on a variety of land uses, warehouses being one of them. In the IT manual specifically, they identify warehouses and accessory office space as one use. So they don't look at, well, this is a 80% warehouse and 20% office. They consider the likelihood that a warehouse is going to need some back of house office space for it to run a business. And as you heard, we're providing approximately 10% of the space for office. But in terms of parking and trip generation, IT looks at that as one use. It's warehousing, and it happens to have some office space underneath the roof to support the business. So what IT has for a building of this size, the anticipated 85th percentile parking demand. That means 85% of the time it's going to be this number or less, 76 vehicles. And that's the 85th percentile. That's a conservative way of looking at it. The average is 27 vehicles, which is where we think this is more or less going to wind up. The wide difference between the average and the 85th tells us that the 85th percentile is actually more of an outlier than it is closer to the actual situation.
I apologize. What is the deficiency on the 16? I'm sure you said it was missing.
The 16 are loading docks for trucks. So if a truck pulls up, we have to count them as a parked vehicle. They're going to park in the loading dock, not in the standing space.
So you're saying you have 16 loading dock spots plus 68, right?
To get the 84. So we believe the 84 parking spaces composed of the 68 and 16 is more than ample based on industry standard ITE parking generation data and the likelihood of how this business will operate. So in summation, from a traffic impact standpoint, this project will not cause deleterious impact on intersections. We're amply parked on site, and the front yard and monument sign and clear site triangle variance that we're seeking will not be negatively or adversely impacted by this development. Thank you. Happy to answer your questions.
Excuse me, I just have a question about Roger Avenue.
Yes.
Now, I think Mr. Vanessa said that Roger Avenue is 2 ways, each way west from Gates.
Correct.
And then east
It's
2 ways.
it's one way. East of Gates, it's one way going east. But when you get to Gates, you can go on Roger Avenue.
But
This says 2 ways.
Oh, you have that.
Look, see? Doesn't that mean it's 2 ways?
This part is 2 ways.
Yeah.
This part east.
Right. And does this end?
It eventually dead ends.
Dead ends. Right.
Off the page.
Okay. Mr. Vanessa, what else?
Yes. If the board doesn't have any further questions of Mr. Fauchot, that's our direct presentation. I know Mr. Agostino is here to address some things, and I'll just finish after these.
All right, I just want to raise, I have 2 letters here, actual letters, people wrote letters, not just emails. One of them is from the adjoining property owner who is very much in favor of the application, and then a much longer letter written by Victoria Morrow, who hears here all the time on behalf of the Inwood Civic, and very much thanking everybody for cleaning up this property, doing something here. Very much in favor also.
Yeah, I provided copies of those to Mr. Owens, and as you know, it's not common to get letters like that for projects, especially industrial projects. So it's a few and far between.
Good enough for the environmental mess. So. All right,
Okay, Mr. D'Agostino, you're up.
Again, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Albert A. D'Agostino from Herbert D'Agostino, DC, 107 South Central Avenue, Valley Spring, New York, 11580. I'm appearing for property at 150 Roger Avenue, which is owned by Roger Realty Company. First of all, let me say that what the applicant is proposing for this property, which is a Superfund site, is laudable. The principal had a man who is Mr. Vanesso's client, happened to see me and actually reached out, and I reached out to Mr. Vanesso, and we've had, I think we had 2 or 3 meetings, several hours. My client participated, but I want to make it crystal clear the context of my remarks, and they are in support. We have one area of concern that I don't think is major, and I know Mr. Vanesso is going to speak to that. By way of background, you recall I assume you recall the still pending application with regard to the property across the street, which I think was on before this board 13 times before it was adjourned without date. It technically is still pending. We completed one lengthy litigation in Albany, and the owner of that property has commenced another action against the town. So what I'm getting to is there are several parcels that describe as part of the neighborhood. The applicant has the largest parcel, which was a problem parcel in terms of environmental and issues, and as I said, it's laudable as to what he has done and what he proposes to do. There was a question with regard to, I think from Member Adams regarding Roger Avenue. Roger Avenue was kind of an unusual road. It was a county road up until the early 2000s. Shortly after 2000, I think it was early in the administration of the county executive Swazi, where the county proposed to swap roads with towns for efficiency and maintenance, and there was a swap that was done with regard to which involved Roger Avenue. Roger Avenue, while it was a county road, is now a town road, and concurrently with that, part of it was privatized, and I've got to change my points of the compass again to turn me around 3 times down there. I think it's to the west. To the west, shortly beyond the subject property that's before you, Roger Avenue is privatized. It's rather narrow. I believe the paved portion is approximately 30 feet. And now going to my client's property. My client's property is improved with what is referred to as the Sony Warehouse. The Sony Warehouse is a facility which, if it did not exist in the town of Hempstead, and the town of Hempstead had an opportunity to bring it into the town of Hempstead, I believe every effort would be made to do so.
Mr. Hempstead, on that map right there, that aerial,
yes,
which is your client's property?
You might have to. Let's see. I believe it's right here.
Right across the street?
Yeah,
okay.
Right across the street. And the privatization occurs somewhere down here. And this, with the various vehicles, you can see the dump trucks, etc. That's the other property that
litigation
was in litigation. And it's still pending application.
Okay.
The concerns that we had with respect to the property across the street dealt with their proposed use, which was soil sifting, which in our opinion involved noise, vibration, dust, etc. But more than that, their intention was and is to conduct a barging operation from that location.
Well, who's that? Who wants to do that?
Who wants to do
I'm
it?
sorry, I'm just trying to follow you.
Okay.
As it relates to no, I know where your client is.
This is my client. This is the
property. That's your client, Sony, and the subject property across the street. Now, who wants to do the barging? Oh, but that's not. Does that affect this application at all?
It does in terms of traffic. And I want you to be. I want my comments in favor of this application to be crystal clear that they're in favor of this application. And
you can just say that.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than that.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit more than that. If you remember, the issue that was involved here was approximately a quarter acre of waterfront property, which turned out is owned by the town, not by the applicant. But in any event, what's proposed there is to bring in ocean-going barges with stone, gravel, etc., and truck them out. There is some activity going on in that parcel, and the size of the trucks that are used there are rather large. Our traffic expert, and I'm talking about what I will refer to as the Russo parcel directly across the street. This parcel here. Some of the trucks that we used, the trailer dump trucks, were 26 wheelers. I didn't know they built it that big. So if you look at the configuration of the road, if you look at the fact that Roger Avenue becomes privatized to the west, and the truck traffic, in the neighborhood, that the traffic from the parcel adjacent to us, which is not the applicant's, is of concern. So when I say that we are not in opposition to this application, I want the record crystal clear that that has nothing to do with our long-established opposition to the barging and that type of thing. The other issue which I discussed, my client discussed with Mr. Vanessa and Mr. Mann, and that's why I went through this background, is our concerns with the ingress and egress off of Roger, as opposed to the main ingress and egress off of Gates. And we discussed two things. One, I believe that there's some consideration going to, and I'll leave that to Mr. Vanessa, toward widening the driveway on Gates. And the thought at this point, as has been represented to us, and we have no reason to disbelieve it, is that smaller vehicles, passenger cars, would be the ones that would be entering and leaving on Roger. The only concern we have there is if there's a change of use at all, that we are concerned about large trucks entering and exiting on Roger because of what's being proposed across the street. And going back to my client's use, my client is some warehouse that has been occupied by Sony and predecessors since the late 1980s. Is the only warehouse of its type in the Western Hemisphere. There were two, but one was destroyed in fire at LAX a couple of years ago.
What is a warehouse?
Sorry?
What is a warehouse? Like equipment for filming or something?
Oh, no. The built inside of our building is another building, in fact, which is hermetically sealed, and there very, very strict requirements with respect to temperature and humidity, because in there are old films that were acquired by Columbia and going back 100 years ago.
And then your objection, if I understand it correctly, you're just kind of lodging your general objection to tractor-trailer traffic on Roger because you see this as being related to your objections to the barging property's use of tractor-trailers.
Yes. But we're not, as I said, as proposed, we're not objecting to the application. We do have concerns if there were a change of use with respect to the ingress and egress from Roger. Would we prefer that wasn't there? We would, but I'll let Mr. Vanessa speak to that.
Wait, you mean a change of use from what he's proposing in the future, or to this use?
That would bring a trailer, larger trucks in on Roger, or perhaps they change to manufacturing something with more intense traffic. And it's because of this bottleneck at the end. It's because of the still pending application that's before you for the barging materials. And with that, the only thing I would add to that is congratulations to the chairman. I've always been appreciative of your courtesy and most of all your patience. We've had some long hearings on occasion, and wish you well.
All right, next.
Mr. Vanessa?
We also have one gentleman here who also is speaking in favor of the application. Who'd like to just put a few words on that.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Please take a seat, see the name and address for the
Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? Mr. Chairman, congratulations on your time. I'm David Hance, Hance, 17 Meadow Road, Inglewood, New York, 11096. I'm the current president of the Inglewood Civic Association. This project is currently in our domain. Briefly, I just want to say we are in support of this project. We're very, very happy that the old structure was removed. It was an eyesore. They even had, sadly, homeless people living in it, animals. People were dumping there. So we're looking forward to meaningful development. We know it's a commercial property. Something has to go there. We would only ask, like on the previous application, Gabrielli Group built a building. they promised to put a nice landscaping, and he did. We would hope that this group would landscape the property and maintain it so that it would be an asset to the property. There were some questions, small things about lighting. Some community members questioned water runoff, but we met with the group and they assured us that all updated codes would be followed regarding water runoff and the like. And that's pretty much it. We are in support of it, and we wish them luck. And as a community group, we're pro-development, and we think it can benefit the community. Maybe, although you can't mandate it, would be nice if they could hire some of the people that would be working there from the local community. Again, that might be out of your purview, but I just wanted to mention it to everybody. Thank you for your time, and congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time.
Glenda?
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, in closing, I'll just point out a few things. As you heard, there is support, significant support for this application. And that said, I want to just point out a couple of things that my client has agreed to implement in order to, or coming out as a result of the community outreach that he did. He agreed to increase the height of the privacy PVC fence along the residential property lines from 6 feet to 8 feet, if this board will permit that as a condition of the approval. Similarly, he's going to increase the height of the double row of arborvitae.
Real quick. Just so we can take it into advisement as to which property line is it where?
The southerly property line adjacent to the residences to the south. He would propose, he's permitted to put a 6-foot-high fence. He would propose, at the behest of the neighbors, to put an 8-foot-high PVC fence along the southerly property line. Additionally, he's agreed to increase the height of the double row of arborvitaes along the residential property line from 5 feet and 6 feet high to 7 foot, 8 foot high, going to larger arborvitaes higher and sooner, so that they fill in that much faster.
So 8-foot fence and living fence along the southern property line.
Correct.
Cover that. Both of them.
Then, in connection with our discussions with Mr. D'Agostino, he is correct. We offered to widen the driveway on gates from 54 feet wide to 60 feet wide in order to accommodate that much better truck traffic in and out, and to really encourage that area be used as the main ingress and egress for the truck traffic. Additionally, we can increase the width of the Roger Avenue curb cut from 20 feet to 24 feet, so that even if there are relatively few trucks that choose to egress from there, or even in very unique circumstances ingress from there, it will make it easier for them to turn in and not block Roger Avenue. And certainly the points made by Mr. D'Agostino about the importance of keeping Roger Avenue open and accessible, and also the importance of whatever ultimately occurs on that property that his client is presently in litigation with, making sure that it doesn't become a nuisance due to noxious and offensive activities. We have our interests aligned in that regard, and certainly if and when this application is approved, then and that application comes before the board, we'll certainly be making our feelings known about that, and it all towards an effort of making sure that the best way to get a good tenant in this site is to make sure that Roger Avenue is open and accessible, and that there are not noxious and offensive uses occurring around it. So that will always be an interest that we both share. I would close simply by saying that the Nassau County Planning Commission does not have jurisdiction over this application. Mr. Owens provided me with a copy of the letter that was sent to the board indicating that there were no county roadways, no county properties within the radius required to have them, give them jurisdiction. So consequently, the board can grant and rather vote this application today or without waiting for that decision. And I would simply say that, as noted, if you took a look at any of the photos that are in this handout that we gave, this has been a significant, this will be a significant improvement on what that property was environmentally, from a tax standpoint, and from a use standpoint. It's a real home run for the area. And if you know my client's other developments in the town, you'll know also that he will landscape, he will maintain it, he will do right by the community. That's his habit. So with that, I will close the application, or close my presentation. Only thing left to say is that to share in my farewell to our esteemed chairman. Somebody this morning said that they remember Chairman Weiss's first day. Sadly, I cannot remember that first day, but that's because of my limited memory. But what I do remember is that in the 18 years that he has been chairman, I've been appearing before him on a monthly basis at least, and I can say without a doubt that his demeanor, his professionalism, his common sense, and his knowledge of the zoning ordinance made for extremely professional, extremely well-run zoning board meetings. And I, as a zoning practitioner, can only ask for that, and I greatly appreciate that, and I will definitely miss you as the chairman of this board. I wish you all the best as you go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. All right, any other questions from the board?
Chairman, I move that the hearing be closed and matter be placed on the decision calendar. Everyone who signed in on the case will receive a copy of the board's decision by mail when it is tendered. Thank you all for coming and your patience participating in it. It makes a big difference.
Second. You're in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All right, we can take a short break to give our reporter a chance to do whatever it is, blood back to fingers, and then we will come back and just finish up. Just remember, that we just put Well, let's see.
Mr. Vanessa, I meant to say those conditions about the age of living and the intergovernmental on the southern border and the writing of the kids and all that.
So south is on well, the board was trained with that. It is very nice.
The back door is open at lunch section. She said she liked the back door.
Yes. I think that was the motivation behind it. Trees. Was the attorney or the applicant about keeping the trees?
No.
Yeah, that's the attorney's the one with the mask on. And then the owner of the property is the middle guy. Yeah, you should. Just tell what your concerns are, then you might be able to improve on it. You're welcome.
And I gave you that.
Oh, thank you.
It's from a small chocolate place in Oceanside.
Yours is much better. Hey, make sure you pick up those, okay? You on your way to them? Are you on your way? Okay. Okay, got it. I'm here.
Are we causing issues, Stephanie?
Oh no, let's make it sure my husband. He's on bed. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to go a little out of order. We're going to call case P122, Baldwin Farm Point, New York, LLC, doing business as Farm Stores. Install one detached double-faced illuminated tile outside, setback 10 feet 6 inches from Grand Avenue and 10 feet 6 inches from Grand Avenue. Known as 2085 Grand Avenue.
Good evening.
Gentlemen.
Good evening.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help God? Please take a seat, state your name and address.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kara Scott Bolger. I'm at 400 Garden City Plaza, Suite 420, Garden City, New York, 11530. I'm the attorney for the owner and the petitioner applicant here. And this is John O'Connell. He's an investigator with my office who handles the field work for the variance in question here. Essentially, my client purchased about a year and a half ago an existing dairy barn in Baldwin that had existing signage, and we renovated it to be a newer looking dairy barn, and in order to put our own signs up, we were told we had to go through the process of applying for a variance because the ownership had transferred and the signs didn't transfer with it. So they're the same signs, they're new, they're in the same place the old signs are going to be. It's essentially a commercial area. The sign is just on our property. It's very non-residential where this is. It doesn't impact anything. It doesn't affect anything in the area. It's essentially exactly like it was before, but new and improved. John can answer any specific questions that you would have with respect to the signage. He's my on-site guy. He handles everything with the board.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the hearing be closed and not be placed on the decision calendar. You be notified by mail that this decision is requested.
Sorry about that, John. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We don't need you.
All good? All good?
Not granted yet.
Happy holidays. Congratulations on retirement. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next have case 84922, Wanda, Land Home Incorporated. Variances in subdivision of lots front width from on street line to front setback line, the structure dwelling and garage, demolished existing dwelling, known as 3351 Woodbridge. Also, case 85022, Wanda, Land Home Incorporated. Variances in subdivision of lot front width from on street line to setback line, construct dwelling with garage. 500 beds, north side of Woodward Avenue, 555 feet, 15 inches east of Beach Street. You swear or tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, that's good.
Yes.
Name that.
Good evening, appearing for the applicant, Howard Aberdeen, 2116 Merrick Avenue, America.
It's Barry Nelson, 220 Pettit Avenue, Belmont, New York, 11710.
All right, Mr. Aberdeen, what can you do for that?
This is the application of Kaplan Homes Incorporated for variances required in order to subdivide a parcel of property into 2 lots and construct 2 new single-family homes. Premises under application is located on the northern side of Woodward Avenue, 501.19 feet east of Beach Street, that's BEECH Street in Toronto. It has a street address of 3351 Woodward Avenue. It is also known as Section 57, Block 100, Lot 67 on the Nassau County Land Tax Map. The premises have dimensions of 108.77 feet in width, 150 feet in depth, and a total lot area of 16,315.5 square feet. It was developed with a single-family dwelling, attached garage, constructed in 1954, and a swimming pool constructed in 1973. By this application, the applicant gets variances required in order to subdivide the property into 2 lots, demolish the existing structures, and to construct 2 new colonial-style single-family dwellings, 1 car interior garages, and double-width parking pads on site.
Mr. Aberdeen, do we correctly see that all you need for this entire application is a less than a half a foot, around a half a foot?
I wish that was
6
the case.
inches?
No, this is residence A. So we require a 60-foot.
So you need 6 feet.
Correct, 6 feet.
Then no other variance.
5.5. Whatever one's okay. It's not just less. It's not as de minimis as I would like. Just also for the record, the existing home has been rendered not habitable by the town of Hempstead and essentially condemned. The town of Hempstead signs on it and it's fenced off to prevent any mischief.
Why has it been deemed inhabitable?
I think it must have been deteriorated to the point where the town. I don't know any more details other than the fact that the sign and postings are on the structure in the town.
Thank you.
Variance is required for lot width. Lot A, 54.39 feet proposed with 60 feet required. And lot B, 54.38 feet proposed with 60 feet required. The parcels comply with all other requirements of the Residence A zoning district. Particular interest, we have a total lot coverage of 21.58%, with a maximum being 25%. So clearly, with the proposal before the board, there is no over-intensification of land use and property. Please note that the plan that is before the board does depict the cellar entrance. We would agree that would be removed in the event the board was inclined to approve the application. The applicant would also agree to an owner-occupied condition in the event the application is approved. With that, unless the board has questions of me, I will introduce Mr. Nelson to testify and suggest we move things.
Mr. Nelson, your address for the record, please.
It's on the record, sir.
Okay, since the last time we qualified you as an expert in real estate and real estate valuation, have there been any changes in your credentials?
No, sir.
All right, we're going to continue your qualifications as an expert and you often testify.
Thank you. I handed in various exhibits, photographs of the subject property, surrounding uses that include 18 pictures, a location map, aerial view, and comparable sales.
And we'll accept those all in evidence, okay?
Last, I did hand in a Nassau County Department of Assessment tax map of subject block. Attached to it, the Board of Appeals cases approving or granting the houses, 3 houses to the east of subject property when they were constructed in the 1950s with the less than 60-foot frontages. And I believe they were here before. With 50-foot widths to the east of subject property. The area is fully developed. Sunrise Highway and Seaford Avenue to the north and northeast are commercial developed uses. In fact, the property that abuts the subject property to the immediate north is the storage lot area of the new car auto dealership on Sunrise Highway at the southeast corner of west corner of Sunrise Highway and Seaford Avenue. As Council mentioned, the crux of the application, the only variance sought is the front width. The proposal is for 54.39 feet, where 60 feet is required. It's 90.6% in compliance, just under 6 feet required for full compliance. But the property does contain over 16,300 square feet. The current improvements are vacant and in disrepair. It is fenced in and ready for redevelopment, demolition, and redevelopment. 2 new colonials will fit in the character of the neighborhood. The applicant did build initially to construct 2 new colonials at 3320 and 3324 Woodward Avenue, and that would just be approximately 300 and 360 feet southwest of subject property on the same street. I provided photographs of those colonials, which will be similar to what's being proposed in this application, as well as the comparable sales, and they did sell for in excess of $1,100,000 on each, which would be what is expected on these 2 houses as proposed. It's whether you have 1 lot or 2 lots. The applicant does own the property outright. He's ready to move forward, and in my opinion, the granting of the variances as requested is not going to alter or change the sense of Captain's neighborhood or depreciate property values. Referring to the radius map, you'll see the 4 houses to the east of subject property. Each has 50-foot frontages, and southwest of subject property on the south side at 3344 Woodward Avenue, a 50-foot frontage. So we have that happening along Woodward Avenue. The property backs up the commercial property. Each lot will be oversized, over 8,000 square feet for each. There's de minimis, in my opinion, for the requested front width on each property.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else to add?
Not at this time.
I'd just like to say that also, each parcel as proposed will have lot area well in excess of what is required. 6,000 is required. The lot delineated is parcel A. Lot A would be 8,180.5 square feet. Lot B would be 8,157 square feet. So clearly a reasonable development of 4th block. The resident here who'd like to speak?
There's two residents that signed in opposition. Yeah. You want to speak?
Come up
to the podium up here.
Before she speaks, I think there's like to say we did speak and there was concern raised about the existing tree on the property in front of the house, which we will look at trying to preserve if it is all possible, but we can't commit to that.
Right. Yeah. It's for
Good evening, everybody. This will be very short.
Name and address, please. Name and address.
Yes. My name is Joan Kamenetzer. I live at 3162 Hickory Street in Montauk, which is on the other side of Montauk Avenue from the house. But I frequently drive down Woodward Avenue, and I'm always admired.
As do a lot of people.
Yes.
Busy street.
It's a lovely street. Okay. The subdivision of properties in residential areas frequently results in higher population density and a likely increase in car traffic, which also increases air pollution and carbon output. And these days of dangerous climate change, this is not a good thing. The loss of mature trees, as in this case, a beautiful mature oak, possibly 50 or more years old, also has a negative impact on our environment. The results of tree loss are increased noise, less green, fewer birds and beneficial animals, as well as the loss of the beauty and character of our neighborhoods. I have lived at 3162 Hickory Street in Montauk for 41 years. One big reason that I moved to Montauk was because of the trees and the beauty of the neighborhoods. I remember as a little girl in the 50s riding in the car with my parents through Montauk. It was very different from our beloved ranch in Hempstead. I was in awe of the huge maple trees on Montauk Avenue. This part of Montauk had many older homes and big, mature trees. Where we lived in Hicksville, everything was new, with newly planted little trees. And it was nothing like where I was born and lived for my first 5 years in Richmond, Queens, New York. The loss of mature trees and the subdivision of properties, as is being requested at 3359 Woodward Avenue, has a great negative impact on our communities, both environmentally and aesthetically. I think every effort should be made to avoid these unfortunate results. Refurbish the house. It was a lovely home. Keep the property whole and keep the trees. But I would like to just mention at the end of this, I did speak with the builders. They told me about the law about trees, that developers must forward an effort to save the trees as much as possible. And I appreciated talking with them, and thank you for mentioning. They were very, very nice. So, and thank you for all the work you do, and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Walters, you out there? Okay.
Michael Walters, 3363 Woodward Avenue, Montauk, New York. I am the house directly next to babies. This is all new to me. I've never been to something like this, so I don't know. My concerns are, well, first of all, I don't think we need two houses. I mean, it's the charm of the neighborhood. I was supposed to be here with more neighbors, but they all said nothing's going to change. So, with that, I'm concerned about the runoff. Right now, I deal with flooding. I brought it to the town when I bought the house years ago. I'm more worried that with two houses now, the way they move around everything, I'm going to get more water pushed to my yard. There's been times where I've had 5 feet of water in my backyard. This property floods too. During Sandy, it was over 6.
Sandy came that much north?
There used, from what I've been told, because my uncle lives 5 houses down, there used to be a creek in this neighborhood way back in the day. We filled it in and built houses on it. So
Which
now,
is unfortunately not uncommon on the South Shore.
of course, I mean, I work in construction, so I deal with flood waters and, high tide and everything else. But that's my concern. I'm raising my property, and now I'm going to deal with, that's my potential problem, more water being pushed my way.
Mr. Abertino, if this case is granted, it goes to our Department of Engineering. They will review it, and they will likely force the applicant to put in storm drainage on their property.
As part of it.
As part of the construction. They're not allowed to have their water runoff go onto other people's property. It has to be self-contained.
I brought that up to the town before, because part of the problem is the people behind me, the dealerships, and the town has told me it's buyer beware. Good luck. I had to fix it my way, so I raised my property. But I also...
We understand the concern, okay.
It's a major concern for me. I'm also worried about, now that they're putting basement apartments into, you can't call them apartments. We all know what they are. If there's an outside entrance, the 2 that they built down the street.
There will be no outside entrance.
That's what we okay, well, I thought you said there might be an outside entrance.
No.
There was one of the plans and we agreed to remove it.
And it will be owner-occupied as a requirement if it's granted, so that it's not going to be absentee ownership.
Not a rental.
All right, is there anything else that you would like to ask?
No, that was it. Flood in my yard.
Understood. All right.
Did you want to respond? I would like to, yes. Regarding the issue regarding runoff, is unwaverable other than to contain overflowing water. Whenever a new home is constructed in the town of Hempstead, the Department of Engineering requires drainage calculations that demonstrate that the water that runs off from the roof, from impervious surfaces such as driveways, all be collected and drained on site. It cannot go into the street, and it cannot go into adjoining properties. And that's been the case with new construction for many, many years now. So in reality, if indeed the current state of affairs results in water coming off of the property and onto either the street or onto other properties, it will be markedly better and improved by the fact that these 2 new homes with the appropriate engineered drainage systems will be installed as a result. So I'd just like to also mention that. And also, just as far as the subdivision application itself, Mr. Walters does reside on a parcel with a width of 50 feet, which is a beneficiary of variance similar to that being sought here, except to provide closer to 50 feet.
But he wasn't objecting to that part of the subdivision.
I imagine not. And so these are reasonable homes for the lot, as I pointed out. We're well below the maximum lot coverage. We provide full side yards, and it's a very reasonable application. So that would be our case. If I just also have a moment to congratulate Chairman Weiss on his retirement from the board. I've been one of the regulars who have been speaking all day long. And I remember very well from when you were board member, you assumed the reins as the chair, and it's been a pleasure to work with you as chair of this board for all of these years. We've had some very interesting hearings over the years, and all of them were conducted with the utmost professionalism and decorum, and even when things got hot and heavy at times, your strong leadership was evident in terms of controlling the events of the day, And I just want to say that it's been a distinct pleasure in working with you during your chairmanship, and I wish you the best for all of the future.
Very nice.
And I did want to say, actually, I was here probably your first day, probably, and probably now we finished the last day.
I think you've been there, we started together, and I don't think there's been a day that I didn't see you.
We notice if you're not here.
You kind of have a farm, but just...
All right, thank you all. Okay, any other questions from the board?
I move that the hearing be closed, the matter be placed on the city counter, Mr. Albertine, Mr. Nelson, and those of you who signed in on the case will all receive a copy of the board's decision by mail once it's rendered. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.
I'm in favor. I would also like to add that we all, on behalf of the board, myself, feel the same way all the accolades that have been given to you, Mr. Weiss, Dave, Chairman, and I consider you a friend of mine, a dear friend, and thank you very much.
I do appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Thank you. All right, we'll take a very short break. We'll come back. We'll do our decisions one more time and call it a day.
I promise not to be back.
Take a break, but it's not a break.
It feels like
Me too, and you know, it's like you're more tired than you did physically. I don't know, I used to say that, but before they did that, a big, when they were going to their eyes, but are red, it's like, why am I exhausted? My eyes are all red. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All that good stuff.
All right, children, let's go.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Frank.
Yes, it is, Jack.
I didn't even check.
Good to see you, Frank.
All right. Is it leave on? After shower leave on?
Yeah, you have to do it after I get out of shower.
So I mean you don't wash it out. You don't rinse it out.
I don't.
Oh, it's a simple question. It's not so you put on the shower, put on and rinse out. You put it on, so just leave it. You have a conditioner.
Good head, Irish hair.
My son has a hair.
I'm large built as it is. But, you know, when my hair starts growing out, my hat's getting tighter. As it is, I have 7/7.
Do you?
Yeah. That's a hat.
Kids have.
Like, I put my hat, like one of my friends wore one of my hats just as a joke, and they look like a little child. It looks like, you know, they put it in that.
That's what it is. They're oozing. Big ass. What do you call that? Oh, that's recorded.
But that's on
It's not the first time I ever did something like that.
you guys. Any decisions? No?
I'll talk to you next.
838, 839, 22 East Meadow, Twin Oaks FM Holdings LLC, Southside of Woods Avenue, west of Belmont Road, subdivision, he offered the usual subdivision, conditions that we put in, owner occupied, no basement entrance. Does anybody have anything else to add on that one? If not, do I have a motion?
I move case 838 to 839, 22 East Meadow, FM Holdings.
Somewhere in this.
Yeah. Exactly. Be approved as requested with,
The conditions are okay.
What's
there?
Where? No, right there.
Policies going down.
Second.
Well, I have no idea what you were saying.
There was a motion to.
No, I heard her, I couldn't understand what these two.
That's okay, we just like the name.
Second?
A second.
Aye. In favor?
Usual
Opposed, any
subdivision
abstentions?
conditions
Yes.
and those other conditions offered.
840-22 near West Perry, Abdul Kadir, 594 Kathleen Place near West Perry. Any discussion? Not to have a motion.
I move, Mr. Chairman, case 840-2022, as described in the Jewel Career involved, located from the property 594 Kathleen Place near West Perry, be approved as requested.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Case 841, 842, 22 Roosevelt, Verde Land Homes, Inc. This is 119 East Fulton Avenue in Roosevelt. They agreed to owner occupied, they agreed to no basement entrance, they agreed to move the homes closer together so the short side yards on the inside and the bigger side yards are on the outside. And there was no NCPC on this one for whatever reason. What do you say? Is this one going tomorrow? Okay, so can we want to approve it subject to approval?
We can do that, yes.
Do any other discussion on this? Not, do I have a motion?
I move cases 841 and 842 of 2022. This is subdivision of a lot located in Roosevelt. Be granted as requested with all subdivision conditions and all other conditions stated on the record by the applicant.
Okay, subject to the Nassau County Planning Commission.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Next case is 843, 844, 22 New York City, Retail Property Trust. Property is in Roosevelt. All right, do we want to hold this one until the NCPC looks at the traffic report on this?
Makes sense.
And I'm sure we should also make a draft.
Want to do a draft grant subject?
Yeah, so there was two things, with the NCPC determination as well. Similar to how we did the previous one, where we specified the amount of spaces, the uses, that sort of thing.
Right, and sequel also. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, next one, 845 and 847, 22 in Inwood, Inwood 175 LLC and Inwood 41 LLC. Property is southeast corner of Roger Avenue. All right, we were given a lot of conditions.
Should I ask Mr. Vanessa to send my letter to his vote?
I have a bunch of them here, but
Do we want to do a grant, draft grant, or just do a grant and we'll let the conditions come in?
Personally, I think it could be great, but I think it's a very good application.
I think it's an excellent application.
Can I just say one thing, like I wish Mr. Vogel, I thought they mentioned it was like a superfund site in the past, and we haven't had a CEQA, so he's going to need to figure out what we need to put into our CEQA determination, given that it was a superfund site.
According to everything I see in the file, though, the remediation was completed.
So we need to put that in.
Yeah, so we need some proof of that.
okay, so
It might be in there.
are we making a motion to adopt the net deck and grant it, and then I'm just going to wait for Bill to provide me with the conditions as well as any of the stuff in the long form secret.
Yes.
Yeah. Case 848 is going to Elmont.
Wait, what's the motion on that?
Motion is that.
Oh, okay, who made the motion? Joe,
seconded, seconded, all in favor? Any opposed, any abstentions? Next case, 848 is 22 in Elmont, 15 case, Group LLC, is adjourned February 1, 9:30 a.m. Cases 849 and 850, 22 and Montauk, Kaplan Homes INC, 3351 Woodward Street in Montauk. Any discussion on this? Same thing, they all have seller entrance, owner occupied, even the objector, I mean, it's not, current activity.
Yeah, so I will make a motion that we have council to the board draft a grant.
Do you have grant, just do
Grant.
Usual subject conditions, as well as the agreed upon no-base matches.
I'm not going to case.
We did? I thought you just made the motion.
Yeah.
Second. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Last case.
Subject to the NCPC approval.
Correct. Yes. 851 of 22 in Baldwin Farm Point, New York, LLC, DBA Farm Stores. 2885 Grand Avenue, Baldwin. Sign case. Any discussion? If not, do I have a motion?
I move case 851 of 2022, located at the corner of Grand Avenue and Atlantic Avenue, known as 2885 Grand Avenue. The granting is requested with all conditions with respect to signs, 5 years.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have one other carried over.
I have the motion on case 595 of 2022, Rockaway Portfolio LLC. I was absent that day. I reviewed the transcript. I then had a chance to review the proposed decision, and I'd like to make a motion for a little more time. I've done all of it, but Mr. Vogel has to incorporate and distribute the input that I had on that decision. So I'd like to make a motion for another.
Well, you don't have to make a motion.
So we're gonna hold over?
But just be aware that, okay, you're now involved, but Mr. Fisher was absent, and I will no longer take public decision, so you need the full file, I think.
Okay.
All right? All right, what else?
That's all I do.
All right, before we make a motion to adjourn, I again would like to thank you all. What I'm going to miss more than anything is us. Because it's just been great. It's been an absolute pleasure, even with Danny and John. Even with Danny and John. It's been great. I mean, we really do the right thing for the right reasons. We try hard. And we do it the right way. And I hope that whoever sits in this chair in the future does the same thing, and just does it the right way. You know what? We do right by the thing. And it's great. I greatly appreciate what you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you two guys are fabulous. Stephanie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been wonderful.
Be nice.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You should get this down.
Thank you very much, Stephanie.
Happy holidays.
Happy
holidays, happy retirement, happy
We just finished work with
I didn't know you coming in, so I was so happily surprised. If I knew. I love Al too. He's just a sweet, honest guy.
I've known you from the beginning. Since the beginning.
That's right.
You've always been in my corner.
So I am still on the board until December 31st. So if you need me, obviously let me know. Otherwise, as of that, I'm telling you right now, it is never my intention to sit over there. I won't. I don't want to present cases. If somebody wants to pick my brain, stuff like that, maybe I'll come in and represent the opposition. Tell me how to prepare opposition cases. All right, I'll see you all tomorrow.
Yes. Are you taking your LN?
No, I'm just too lazy to get up.
I get it.
Did they turn off our live stream?
Just text them. So
They take their sweet time.
as of right now. Because once I don't have control over it, once I get control over it, once I can turn it on. But until now, I have to text them.
they give you one? Yeah, you want to turn it off. If they could do it from home, you could do it from here.
I agree. I guess I would have some administrative privileges and then we'll do that. Alrighty, guys.
David?
See you tomorrow.
You got it.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Don't lock me out.
Did you grab it?
Someone else supposed to grab it? No.
Are you taking these goodies?
We'll take, we're
gonna take everything out.
Yeah.
Which parking?
That back parking lot.
The one across the street?
Oh, I know, down with the elevator.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. It's taking me a minute.